Hello, I'm Nicole, and I help teams make sense of AI chaos. I run Boring AI, an AI literacy company specializing in upskilling non-technical teams for AI. And over the last couple of years, I have worked with hundreds of managers, all trying to answer some of the same questions about leading their teams with AI. Questions like, where do we start with AI on our teams? How do I get my team to use AI? Where do I find AI use cases? And what are AI use cases? And maybe one of the most important questions of all, how do I do all this AI stuff on top of my job? So if these are questions you've been asking, then this is your course, because this is a course that's specifically for managers whose teams have been asked to use or implement AI, either through a formal AI mandate or even just an informal directive from your leadership saying it's time to everyone use AI. This course combines change management strategy with actual tactics that you can use in your everyday work. And these tactics are ones that have been tested with managers in my live trainings. So we'll focus on things like communication and coaching, as well as get into the important details like how to find AI use cases and standardize them. And I even touch on working with AI agents on your team. Plus, we'll cover the really important things like risk management and responsible AI use. The goal is to get you into a position in 3 months where you're able to say, here's how my team is using AI, and this is the impact that we are having. And you won't have to become an AI expert to be in this position. I've got templates, I've got exercises, I've got reflection questions. All of it's in this course designed to help you adapt and lead through all of this change. And I'll even show you what to delegate because the reality is you can't do it all. So this course is specifically designed for non-technical teams, so you don't need any coding or technical background to take this course. But one thing to note, this is not a course that is going to teach you how to use AI. That is a different kind of course. So I won't be teaching you how to prompt. Instead, I will be teaching you how to build prompting skills on your team, so that way your team has the skills to work with AI in their workflows. Now, I do recommend you take a basic AI literacy course as the AI journey is long and the fundamentals will strengthen your own individual AI skills, but that is not required for this course. So, if you've been given an AI mandate at your place of work, or maybe you're just interested in building out your own AI management skill set, this is your course. You're going to finish the course with the clarity and actual tactics to get results with AI on your team. But even better, you're going to build your own AI skills, and that's going to give you the confidence to lead through this AI chaos. So I hope to see you in my course soon. All right, let's kick things off by talking about how generative AI has changed the workplace and the impact of that on managers. So, summing up 3 years of AI chaos is quite a tall order. So, I'm just going to keep it high level. But generative AI has changed our workplace. This is no future of work, it's going to change. No, it's already happened. And here are some of the key ways. One, we are seeing an explosion of AI tools. It used to be in 2023, we had ChatGPT and we could, try it and just ignore it if we didn't feel like thinking about it. That is no longer the case. These AI tools are everywhere. So we have the big ones like your ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, things like that. But you have thousands of other specialized tools. And if you look on the screen right here, it's an AI agent market map promising hundreds of promising companies selling us AI agents, right? And on top of that, we see all of the platforms that we use on a daily basis on our teams now have AI features, right? And as a result of this, we are seeing more teams overwhelmed by choice, right? And unsure. They're unsure which tools to use, when they should use them, what the better tool is, and so on. We are also seeing a shift in skills and also function. So what I mean by that is that if you are going to use AI on your team, whether you're a technical team or a non-technical team, you have to start thinking about data. Right? Data literacy is now a key skill when it comes to working with AI because data improves the value of AI outputs. And most AI tools in 2026 especially want to connect to our company data. So data literacy is a foundational skill when working with AI, regardless of if you're on a technical team or not. We also see that when you're working with AI on your teams, it starts to change how the work gets done, meaning your functions start to change. Even your team makeup might start to change because when we are defining what parts of the job are done by AI and which parts of the job are done by human, we start to blur the boundaries on our functions. And sometimes these AI tools even cross functions. They start doing jobs that are done on other teams. And so there's real messy and once it starts to get in that space. And lastly, one of the biggest changes is that AI oversight is for everyone. That means everybody has to use their critical thinking skills to ensure that the AI outputs they are reviewing are accurate, to ensure that they're useful, and to ensure that they're fair as well. So it's not that there's one responsible AI team that sits there and reviews all AI outputs. No, it's us, it's everyone, right? And that is a tall order. Okay, so AI is having a big impact on our organizations, and managers are sitting right in the middle of it, right? Because managers are responsible for execution. Okay. So we are seeing specifically with managers AI impact becoming things like one, the AI adoption is now management responsibility, right? Again, going back to execution, we have a leader that says everyone must use AI, or there's an AI mandate, or maybe some people on your team are already using AI. It's still a management responsibility to ensure that that is done effectively and responsibly. AI skills are also becoming part of managerial roles. So we are seeing not just like the data literacy and the critical thinking, but also things like knowing how to evaluate AI tools, right? Knowing how to communicate about responsible AI and model responsible use as well. AI is changing task ownership. So who owns what in a workflow might change because of AI. And that's something that managers have to guide, right? As we figure out where AI fits. And as I mentioned before, responsible AI and oversight are everyone's responsibility, but managers are helping guide it on the teams. There's a lot of team members who are very unsure about AI, not just to use it, but how to use it, where to use it, what's the right way to use it. And it's really up to managers to guide them through this. Now, that is why you're in this course. We're going to talk about all of that. But that's what's happening when it comes to AI's impact on managers. And the takeaway is simply this: managers have to adapt. And the most challenging part is that you have to do it while doing your existing job. Now, when I say adapt, this is really key, because when we think about bringing AI into our teams, this isn't about just using an AI tool. This is fundamentally a change management problem. It means we have to not just teach how to use the tool, but we have to communicate the expectations around how to use AI, right? And how to use it responsible. And we have to coach people through the challenging parts, right? And we don't have to do everything on our own. You absolutely can delegate. And throughout this course, I will tell you some things where it may be smart to just delegate the task. So you don't have to do it all. And you also don't have to be an AI expert to lead on AI. In fact, that's what I absolutely love about AI in this moment, is that we are all learning together, right? We're all learning and trying to figure out where AI fits on our team. So when you embrace that learner's mindset and you approach AI as, well, we're all learning together about AI, then you're going to start seeing results on your team, right? You build the trust with your team around AI when you approach it with this learner's mindset. And it gives you permission to not be the expert. It gives you permission to not have to know all the answers, okay? So as we go through this course, we are building your adaptability for AI. And yes, I'm going to give you a lot of information. I'm also going to give you examples, and I'm going to give you key tactics that you can do on your team. But at the end of most of these units, there is a check-in. And these are essentially a set of reflection questions that are going to guide you through decision-making around AI. Okay, so we're going to be reflecting on things like responsible AI, but also choosing the right AI tools, working with data, and also coaching your team through AI use without them getting overwhelmed. So each of these is going to have reflection questions. So that way you can think about how to apply what you're learning in the context of your role, your team, and your organization, because every organization is in a different stage of AI adoption at this point. It's messy, it's chaotic. And so these questions are really designed to get you thinking and applying what you learned in the context of your role. So it's going to be a journey in this course, but I hope you'll come along. And up next, we'll be talking about the manager's role in AI transformation. All right, let's talk about you and your role in AI transformation, in this AI adoption process. So AI adoption is chaos. I said that before. You will hear me say it again. It is chaotic. And it's not just my opinion, of course. This is what the data shows, right? We see organizations in different stages of generative AI adoption. I'll link to this article in the resources. But this is from an article by Grammarly about the 5 stages of enterprise AI adoption. And what they see is that we have companies in just these different stages. We have companies that are avoiding it, they're resisting change from traditional working methods, and probably for some good reasons, right? They may have a piecemeal approach to generative AI adoption where, they're experimenting with different tools across a few couple of select teams. I'd say this is probably the most common where people are at, where organizations are at. And few, if any, have reached that enterprise-wide adoption. So they're using AI to its maximum potential to transform their business. That is really rare, even in 2026. Yes, we hear the hype. We hear the hype of what AI can do, but the reality on the ground is that change takes time, right? This is a transformative technology and change is going to take time. So where do you fit into this? Well, what you're looking at here is really this timeline of AI adoption. And so what this looks like is when everyone starts, they're starting in kind of this experimental phase where it's like, oh, we're going to try some things. Individuals are using AI tools on their own teams, using it for their own work. Maybe you are in a company where they've got like a playground and people can mess around, right? It's really isolated learning, but the goal is to get to integration, right? That piece where everybody has adopted AI, they know where it fits in their work. You have actual documented AI workflows, that is, workflows that use AI and provide a benefit so you can actually measure what the benefit is. AI really just becomes part of your team operations and decision making. Everyone understands it, they know how to work with it. And any new person that comes onto your team also is easily able to understand where AI fits as well. Now, it's a lot of work to get to that. This course is going to cover that, but it is a lot of work to get there. And you can see kind of that in between phase where it's like, we're collaborating, we're reaching, we're building team processes, we're experimenting, we're showcasing what works and what doesn't, right? And we're coming up with best practices on how to use AI because the reality is when using AI, not all teams are going to use it the same. In fact, individuals do not use AI the same because it is a multi-purpose tool. We're talking specifically about generative AI here. And so that is great from a potential use case point of view, but it's challenging from a standardization point of view. If everyone's using it differently, which use cases should we choose to standardize? We'll cover that, but that's what makes it a bit chaotic. And so everybody is starting in that experimentation phase. We want to make sure that you have the culture on your team and ideally your organization where people feel comfortable experimenting. And then the end goal is, of course, to get to integration. So there are lots of barriers, as you probably already know, to getting employees to adopt AI. And you can see here from the data, this is from Gallup. This was a survey in November 2025 about some of those concerns. And top concerns there are obviously the value of AI, understanding what the value is. It's unclear. And then legal concerns and privacy concerns as well. And I'll tell you, these are all very valid concerns, right? AI is a very challenging technology to actually integrate and work with. Yes, it's great because you can get hands-on and try different things and make a cool, image or create emails and reports. But when we come to actually doing work with it and figuring it out, there's a lot more barriers. And so you as a manager have that opportunity to kind of look at these and say, okay, where can I make things clear, right? Because that's what managers do. You make, ideally, in an ideal world, you make things clear and you break down barriers to understanding and getting the work done. And so top things, we have the lack of clarity on where AI fits into the work, limited time to engage in training. That's certainly something that you can affect on your teams. So being able to say, hey, look, you've got 30 minutes this week to learn something about AI, and let's go further. You actually, I want you to work with it. I want you to try different things and report back what you've learned, right? Because generative AI is a technology that you have to get hands-on from. You cannot learn from just videos alone. So really your goal is to provide guidance, clarity in this ambiguous time. So that could look like, clarity on prompting and data use. It could look like figuring out which AI tools you can use. Certainly how to use it responsibly. You can clarify what the learning opportunities are, whether they're internal or external. You can also impact the time spent learning about how to use and apply AI. And then another big one is troubleshooting when it doesn't work. You want to create an environment where people can come to you or can speak out publicly about when AI is not working, because you are going to find there are plenty of times where AI does not work, right? We don't want people using AI for AI's sake. That does not produce quality work. So you really want to cultivate that environment where people can come to you with AI problems and you can figure out, where we go from here. So that's really your role, is this guidance. And again, you don't have to be an expert. Think of it like facilitation, right? Really picking something that you're good at and focusing on that first and then building from there. And we're going to talk about how to do all of this throughout this course. Your support for all of this, though, will drive the AI adoption in your organization. So employees with managers who support them in AI, the data shows they're 2.1 times as likely to use AI a few times a week, 6.5 times as likely to agree that the AI tools provided are useful for their work, and 8.8 times as likely to agree that AI gives them more opportunities to do what they do best. So you can really see the impact you make when you start to provide this kind of support for employees. So I'm going to end this video with a tool for you. This is an assessment. This is a team assessment that you can use. It's in the resources. And what it's going to do is it's going to assess your current team state. With AI, okay? And it's going to identify your team stage of AI adoption. Now, it's not going to match that timeline I gave you exactly, but it is going to tell you more about where your team is at in the AI adoption process, some things you can do to help them along, right? Yes, you're going to be using a lot of things from this course, but this is just kind of a way to get a snapshot, right? Thinking about where your teams is at, what they are capable of doing now, and maybe where they need to go in the near future. So take that assessment. You don't have to report anything, on what the results are, but it's certainly a reflection tool to help you, just know where your team stands on AI and where some of those opportunities are to influence. So let's talk about the 5 ways that managers support AI use. So getting very tactical here on where you are going to be able to support your team members. The core management responsibilities with AI are facilitating the development of AI fluency skills, communicating guidelines and guardrails around AI use, so specifically how they should be using AI, coaching teams through AI use, right? So that ability to help them troubleshoot and figure out what's working and what's not, identifying AI use cases and workflows, so really getting very tactical on where AI fits and how that changes the work, and then managing that AI risk and responsibility. So we are going to be covering all of these throughout the different units. I will mark where these themes are present, but that is really what you are doing with AI when it comes down to it. Now, it's overwhelming, right, to think about that, especially if you've got a very busy job. So I want you to think about, where is your strength? Are you good at facilitation? Are you good at coaching? Maybe you're really good at processes, right? Find your fit in those 5. Okay. That is where you're going to start. You can take this course and learn all these things, but when you come to applying it, that is where you're going to start. Because remember, AI adoption happens in steps, and that includes your learning about AI and your ability to coach on AI and lead on it as well. So I love this quote. It's from Zapier, who has actually been a leader in some of the AI transformation space. They write a lot on how they approach AI transformation, and I'll be linking to their articles as well. But this quote here really speaks to, the approach to AI in your organization. And it says, don't wait for perfect clarity. You don't need a fully baked strategy to get started. You need a spark and a space to explore. And really, that's it. You can do that regardless of where your organization is at on AI. This can be you. So here's your first check-in on supporting AI use. I want you to think about, where are you strongest in your ability to support teams in their AI adoption journey? And then also, what could you learn that would make you feel more confident to lead on AI? Now, maybe that second one might be, come later. You might learn it later in this course, or maybe you have to take a course outside of this course. Totally understandable. The AI learning journey is more than one course, right? We're all in this together, learning and applying skills. So check in, do those reflection questions, and then I will see you in the next video. All right, let's talk about building AI fluency skills across your team. Now, this word AI fluency is really a buzzword, so I want to give you a definition so we're all clear on what we're working towards. AI fluency is the ability to understand, interact with, and apply AI tools confidently in the context of your work, right? That means you understand AI, you understand how to prompt with it, you understand when it can and cannot be used, and so on. In this case, we are mostly referring to generative AI here, okay? The thing about AI fluency is that it is built over time. right? These skills, you're not going to have them necessarily just from watching a video or using ChatGPT a couple of times, right? It's built with a lot of experimentation and discussion. And really, the key thing to remember is this is a continuous learning process. Okay. You build these skills over time, and adaptability is critical because, again, there may be areas of this where you're just fundamentally uncomfortable, especially if you've never been exposed to technical tools before. It may feel uncomfortable, but hey, that is learning, right? So, some of the AI skills that are necessary when we're talking about non-technical teams, right? These are a list right here. You'll find the full list in your folder. But the skills we're looking at here are everything from kind of AI literacy. That's the basics, knowing what these models can and cannot do, what they're capable of, to prompting, right? That ability to give clear instructions, to data fluency. I've talked a lot about this, but this really means knowing what data or context to add to your prompt in order to get good outputs, right? And also knowing things like data privacy guidelines as well. And then we also see things like choosing the right tool, right? Because we're drowning in tools right now. Now we're going to be talking about just about all of these in this course. But as you think about your team and as you build their skill sets, and everyone on the team doesn't have to have all of these, right? But the basics would be AI literacy, prompting, critical evaluation, and data fluency. Those are really some of the top skills that people need to have when working with AI. And so when you think about the makeup of your team, thinking about where you can help people. If you're a manager who loves to coach people on their skill development, this is certainly your area. But regardless of what you love to do, these are the skills that are going to make it easier to integrate AI into workflows, right? So look for opportunities to build these skill sets, and we'll be talking about these over the next couple of videos. But if you also are thinking, I actually don't know much about data fluency, that's also a sign that you might want to build up those skill sets for yourself as well. Again, you don't have to have all of these because also you're leading teams on AI. That is a skill in itself. But it's something to reflect on. Think about what skills you may also want to build from this list. Next up, we're going to talk about some of these skills in particular and how you build these skills on your teams. Now, let's get a little bit tactical here and talk about how you actually improve prompting skills on your team. And notice here, I'm talking about prompting and iteration because the two go together. So, what do I mean by this? I mean the ability to give models clear instructions and work with the results. And that last part is key because oftentimes I will find people who have problems with their prompts. They get an answer and then they don't challenge the answer. They just accept the answer and they're like, well, that's not really helpful. The key is that you actually have to work with it. You have to tell the AI that, hey, this actually isn't quite right. I actually want this. So when we talked about prompting skills, and that means your team needs to be able to give clear instructions and update the model when they don't get an output that doesn't work. So you see an example on the screen here. Pause if you actually want to read it. But I essentially start out, I give it a prompt. It gives me an output. I don't like it. I tell it it's too direct. It gives me some more options. I still don't like it. And I tell it, it's not right. Can you make it shorter? Can you make it a Slack message? Right? I give it more information to help get to the output. And that's how people have to prompt, right? So the takeaway here is to check in on people and make sure that when they say, oh, prompting isn't working, it's not working, did they go back and tell the AI model what they want after they got a response? That's iteration, and it's a key skill when prompting. So a reminder that good prompts have structure. Now, this is not a course to teach you how to prompt, but for your benefit, knowing that good prompts have structure is going to help you troubleshoot your team members' prompts. So knowing that prompts should have a persona, a task, right? The task is what the model should be doing. Context is all the details it needs to give you a good output, and then a format, how the model should respond, right? It's defining what the output should look like. And this is actually taken from Google's prompting guide, which I'll link to in the folder. Because if it's good enough for Google, it's definitely good enough for all the teams. They have a lot of different prompts in there that you can use. So how do you build these teams on your skills on your teams? One, start with prompt show and tells. Invite people to show their prompts, right? And really, you got to create that kind of trust and safety there so that way people feel comfortable showing. But I guarantee you, someone is going to show, right? Because the more we show, the more we learn, and the more it creates a conversation around AI when we start talking about prompts. What are the prompts and what output did you get? Then ask what's not working with the prompts. People are going to have ideas. They're going to tell you what's not working. And then you can come together and brainstorm solutions around that, right? That's why I go back to that structure. You can say, well, if something, I'm not getting a good output and you notice the prompt didn't have any details, the context about what the task is, it's time to add some more context. You can help troubleshoot. You can invite a prompt engineer to your team to train others, or simply someone who's really good at prompting. Guarantee you can ask in a channel or an email, and someone's going to say, "Hey, I'm really good," and they're going to want to train. There are those people out there. We call them AI champions. We'll talk about that in future videos. You can encourage people to start with the output. So I encourage teams to visualize what they want the output to look like, right? Because how do you instruct something if you don't know what it should look like? Right? So working backwards is very beneficial. And then lastly, you can showcase prompts that work with prompt libraries. So if you've got people that are putting out good prompts that they're using all the time, let's showcase it. And not only showcase it, but organize it. This is going to level up your team. So these are what's called prompt libraries. And these are collections of prompts that anybody on the team can use. Okay, so these are prompt templates. They make it easier for your team to discover and reuse prompts and thereby improve their prompting skills. And so I've included in the resources here a starter prompt library. This is just a simple spreadsheet to help you organize prompts on your team. You can delegate this and give it to somebody else to collect prompts on the team, or you can simply fill them in as people share their prompts in a prompt show and tell. So, going back to what you can do, I think a prompt library, especially if you've been experimenting a lot, is a great way to, one, encourage discussion around prompts, but also increase AI use on your team because you're just making it easier for people. So, quick check-in as you think about prompting and building those skills on your team. I want you to think, how comfortable is your team with prompting and getting quality results from AI tools? What does that look like on your team? And then who on your team could host and lead an informal prompt show and tell session? Now, maybe you might be the person who wants to do that. That's great. But hey, if you're like, I don't have time for that, delegate. Okay. Find the person on your team that could lead this, or even someone on a different team, right? Maybe in your department who could lead this, and then get those conversations started about prompting and iteration. Now let's talk about one of the most overlooked skills when it comes to building your team's AI fluency, and that is data literacy. So data literacy is the ability to select and use data appropriately to personalize AI outputs. What I mean by that is that AI is fundamentally more useful when it has access to more data. That's because AI out of the box doesn't necessarily understand everything about your company, your role, your tasks, your goals, and so on. And so what we see is that AI tools need more data in order to deliver more value, which means people are uploading lots of data into these tools to get better results. And we kind of see an example here on the screen of this. On the left, there's the same, why are my sales declining? It gives kind of like an overview of some reasons, but it's not specific to your organization. Now, if I upload my recent sales data and I ask, why are my sales declining? I get an analysis based on data. And that is fundamentally more helpful for me and my organization. And I can make better decisions based on that. And so what we see, especially in 2026, is that most tools want to connect with data. So what you're looking at right here on the left is Gemini. It gives you the ability to upload files, but also to connect directly to Drive. On the right is Claude, built by Anthropic, and it connects to a whole host of platforms that we use every day on Teams, things like Atlassian or Google Calendar, Google Drive, Notion, and so on. And so really that means that employees need to understand how to think about and use data safely. So they need to know things like what data is appropriate to use inside your organization, when not to use data with AI, what the data privacy policy is, who they can ask when they have data concerns, because we do want to create an environment where people come to you or someone else and say, hey, I'm really not sure about this data. Can I use it? Right? We want people thinking critically about data when they first see it. So they also need to learn how to use that data to improve AI results, right? Selecting the right kind of data because, garbage in, garbage out. If you select, irrelevant data, you're not really going to get a relevant AI result. So all of that is under the banner of AI literacy skills. So how do we build these skills? One, Review your company's data privacy policy. Now, not everyone has one of those, but it's worth checking to see what it says about data privacy. Also, ask questions publicly about data that's included with prompts. So that means if you were doing a show and tell on prompts and people are using data, ask questions about what data are you using? How did you decide on that data, right? Where does that data come from? And it's important that you do it not in a challenging way, but from curiosity, so we can all understand together the data selection process. Educate employees on data privacy when working with AI. You cannot educate too much. Really, under making it clear what data is available to them, what data they can be using, and so on. In the resources, you'll see a list of common data types that people use when using AI. Think about on your team if people on your team are using that type of data, and then also highlight safe data use in AI uses. So if you have an AI use case, that is, you've decided where AI fits into your work. Talk openly about the data that you are using and what makes it safe to use. So really, the theme here is being very transparent and being open and explicit about the data that is being used. And again, you may not be thinking about this now, or maybe you're thinking about it all the time, but being able to talk about it openly is key. So here's our check-in for this unit. Who could you delegate on your team to identify what data is appropriate to use and not appropriate to use for the team? There may be someone on your team that is already thinking about this, so see if you can find that. And then the other thing I want you to think about is how will you communicate strong data privacy practices when using AI to your team? What does that look like in the context of your team? Go back to some of those recommendations and think through what works best in the context of your team. You really want to create a conversation around data and data privacy. So what does it look like to start that conversation on your team? Now let's talk about those really important skills, critical evaluation and human oversight. These are absolutely key when you are working with AI on your teams. So quick definition, so we know what we're talking about. Critical evaluation is the skill of being able to evaluate AI's outputs for bias, inaccuracy, and appropriateness. So really making sure that the output that AI gives you is free of those things. Human oversight is the ability to determine where AI's role stops and a human role takes over. So this really comes into play when you are building AI workflows, figuring out where AI fits into your everyday processes, right? We want to make sure that there are very clear, explicit guidelines around where humans play a role. That is going to help with the critical evaluation, right? And that is going to help with overall AI guidance, or excuse me, overall AI oversight. So what I mean by this are things like decision making, okay? Could AI make decisions? Yeah, it could, but should it? Right? These are the questions we have to be asking. So when it comes to decision making, an example of this might be AI can provide the analysis and recommendations, but a person makes the final decision. And why? Because a person can explain how the decision was made. Okay. And AI cannot. Sure, it can give you an explanation, but it may just be making that up. So we want to leave decision making to the humans, and we want to be explicit about that on teams, right? Don't let people assume, right? There is chaos and ambiguity, and your goal is to make things more explicit and clear. So the other thing to talk about here when it comes to critical evaluation is that we know AI hallucinates. What you're seeing on the screen here is a report from TechCrunch, and it is from OpenAI's own researchers. So the company that builds ChatGPT, they talk about the hallucination rates on some of their models. And at the time that this was published, these were some leading models. So they found that one of their models, O3, this is a reasoning model, hallucinated in response to 33% of questions on their benchmark. So this is a set of questions and tasks that they measure all models on, and found that it hallucinated 33%. Their O4 Mini did even worse. It hallucinated 48% of the time. Those are some high numbers. So what does this tell us? One, that we cannot blindly accept AI's answers. And that seems evident that we can't do that, but people are in a hurry. We move fast, right? We've been promised that AI is going to make us faster, and so we trust. But the reality is that all models will hallucinate. Models do not have a sense of truth. What you're looking at on the screen is the statistical representation of the words that AI takes in and is trained on. That means when you give an AI tool or an AI model data or a text prompt, it is not taking in the meaning. It's breaking that down into those words into statistical representations and doing a lot of math on the back end to predict your most likely answer. And that's wild, right? That's why it has no sense of truth. And so the reality is that it does not know what truth is. That's why it can tell you, I don't know. Okay. Now, AI products can be built to reduce hallucinations, and AI vendors will tell you that to sell you their solution. But the problem remains. You or your team member may not know when it is giving false information because it will give it confidently. Now, hallucinations carry risks. This is an example of Deloitte, big consulting firm. They gave the government of Australia a report that was littered with AI generated errors, including fabricated quotes and non existent academic research paper. It also had citations that were not real. Right. So they had to refund the client. So what's the risk here? Well, financial risk, but also reputation and brand risk because this went worldwide. Now, this introduces some really interesting questions as a manager. When AI produces a client facing report, where does human oversight belong? Who owns that? Right? Who's checking to make sure things are factually correct? After all, it's going in front of a client. Who takes responsibility when AI hallucinates? These are questions you have to talk about on your team with your management, right? When it comes to integrating AI into your work processes. Again, AI isn't just a tool. It changes how we do work and it changes the responsibility of the work. And that's what you're seeing right here. So there is this tension between AI's promise for efficiency and the need for human oversight, right? We have been told it's going to make you faster, but also you need to check. You need to check the answers. And that becomes a big challenge. And so you really have to kind of find that balance on your team. So, how do we build these skills of critical evaluation and human oversight? Well, when it comes to human oversight, again, host discussions with on decisions around where human input should remain and where AI is involved, right? Specifically around decision making, but have those discussions about the role of human versus the role of AI in any given workflow. Encourage ownership of AI output. So if you're using AI, you're transparent about using AI, and you then own if AI make mistakes, right? You don't have to shame people over this, but just encourage the ownership. If AI goes wrong, some people that are responsible for those outputs should own it and talk about what they'll do next time to ensure that things are checked and that outputs are evaluated before it gets put into in front of a client and so on. On hallucinations, this is a very clever tactic that I got from a client, and that's create a wall of hallucinations. So we are going to raise awareness about them when they are happening, so we don't get kind of complacent about AI and AI making up facts. So you could do this. You could print it out if you're in person. You could create it on Slack, a Slack channel of hallucinations. It's highly entertaining. I will tell you that. So you can spot all the different kinds of hallucinations because sometimes it's not just black and white. Sometimes there's partial hallucinations, and sometimes the hallucinations aren't on the output; they're on the actual citation itself in the model, which is just wild. Talk frequently about it, and then also reframe hallucinations as a risk evaluation. What do I mean by that? Risk evaluation means that you are assessing the output on its risk. So that means you should be asking for every output, where is this output being used? That's going to determine the risk. Because if the output is just being used in a team meeting, if AI gets it wrong, it's pretty low risk. You can say, oh, my mistake. I didn't check the output, and we move on. But if the output is being used in a client report that's going to be delivered to the Australian government, the risk of it being wrong is high. It's super high. Just as if you were using AI to generate analysis for the fiscal 2027 strategic plan. And if the output is wrong, it's a high risk to you as an individual and your team. So that means if it's high risk, you should be taking the time to evaluate the outputs. Okay. Because again, we can't evaluate all the outputs, but we can evaluate the high risk ones. So we kind of use this risk evaluation to determine what outputs we should be reviewing critically. So here we are. We're checking in. I want you to think about this. How often are people on your team talking about hallucinations? Okay. And then what part of your team's workflows requiring human oversight should not be done by AI? Right? There's a typo there, but I want you thinking about where in your team's use of AI require human oversight and should not be done by AI. And then once you discover that, bring that into the open and have a discussion about that as well. now that we've talked about some of these skill sets, it's important to talk about how Gen AI is going to impact your work and your team's work as well. So again, the AI landscape, we see this explosive growth of AI powered tools across every function. And as a result of this, what we're seeing is a shift in not just how do we use AI, but which AI do we use and which AI do we trust, right? We're overwhelmed. And some of the emerging risks we're seeing from that is some overload, duplication of efforts, right? If everyone's got an AI tool, are they doing the same thing? Probably. And really just overall a lot of noise. And with all these tools, we're also starting to see much more use of AI tools. And that's starting to shift how our roles work. So what we're seeing is as teams adopt AI in their workflows, we're seeing individual roles move from doer to manager of AI outputs, right? So not manager of teams necessarily, but oversight on AI outputs, right? If we think about content writers who used to write content, they're shifting more to editing content and making sure it's correct and on brand from AI outputs, right? That's a complete shift in the role. And from execution to orchestration. So I'm not just doing things, but I am managing different AI tools that actually do the tasks. And that is a big role shift. We're also seeing that AI can create more work. There's an article that I'll link to in the resources about a sales department that started using lots of AI agents, 20 plus of them, and their team's about 60% AI. And what they found is that you're not actually eliminating management overhead, you're trading one type of work from another. And I think this was a really interesting insight because we've been told, oh, well, AI will free up more of our time. What we're really seeing is that, well, AI will free up your time, but you will still have to manage these AI tools, especially if we get into the agent space, which we'll talk about later on. Now, all of this does feel uncomfortable, and it depends on the individual. But something to note as you engage more with your direct reports around AI is that there is discomfort in these roles changing. And that's because, one, our expertise starts to shift from doing the work to judging AI's work. And that is really a fundamental shift in how we think about work, right? Some of us really like producing work, right? Like to get in there and produce something. And so that shift can feel like you're taking away meaning from a job. Success often with AI depends on managing the AI, not necessarily your manual skills. Your value comes from strategy and direction, not necessarily output. If everyone can produce now, right? Then we have to differentiate by what's the best way to do this? What's the overall strategy? How do we fit it all together? And so on, and building certainty in a sea of AI outputs. And then we also see job titles and expectations evolving faster than most people's comfort levels. So we are seeing a trend of AI skills in jobs. And oftentimes people's current jobs are not necessarily keeping up. But both in the practical sense, I didn't, I'm not being paid to use this every day, but also in a job families sense, meaning that the job families in your organization have not been redefined for AI and don't actually reflect the kind of work that people are doing. All of this makes people feel uncomfortable. I will say there's also just this kind of sense of people trying to figure out what their role is if AI is doing part of it, right? It is uncomfortable. And some people like the work that AI is now taking over. Okay, so I say this because it's important to know maybe you feel this way, or maybe people on your team might feel this way. It's important to know so if these conversations come up, you can facilitate them. So, what is the impact of AI on ICs, individual contributors? Well, one, a flood of tools, features, and AI generated content everywhere. So, they're going to need to develop skills around instincts on what's useful and what's noise, the ability to evaluate AI outputs, not just accept it, and that critical thinking about when AI helps and when it doesn't. The skill set gap here is this. Most people aren't trained to be AI critics. They need you to guide them. And we talked about that quite a bit. But something to remember as you're starting this journey. The impact on leadership. So managers, here's what you're responsible for. One, setting those standards around AI tool use. We talk about this in this course, but you really are the person who's going to be answering the questions around what's acceptable. Whether you are determining that yourself or you're referring to a policy, either way, you are the go-to. Guiding teams through tool overload with a clear strategy, deciding what's adopted, what's blocked, what's worth investing in. And again, you don't have to do this alone. You can have have conversations with your peers and leadership about this. But this is the impact now when you start to adopt AI in your organization. And then shaping the culture of AI use, right? That thoughtful conversations, critical thinking, aligned with business goals. You really are at the intersection of all of that. That is the managerial role with AI. Really being able to map AI uses to those business goals is key. We're going to talk about that in the future videos on AI use cases and AI workflows, but that is the role that you are playing now inside of organizations. And again, how to combine that human judgment with AI speed. It's tension there, right? We need humans making decisions, but we got these machines that are moving fast. So what does that look like? And what does that look like in the context of your work? That is really your role right now inside the organization. So in-demand skills are changing. What we are seeing from the introduction of AI and specifically AI agents into the workplace is we have a less demand for information processing skills, right? Those analyzing data, updating knowledge. AI can do that, and it does it pretty well. Okay. And what research is finding, and this research just came out from Stanford on the future of work with AI agents, is that there's a greater emphasis on interpersonal and organizational skills. So those are those skills that involve human interaction, coordination, resources monitoring, right? Think about the soft skills. They're going to be more important than ever. So we were talking about communication, curation, problem solving, critical thinking, adaptability, discernment, emotional intelligence. Yes, a lot of those skills that you are already using in your managerial role, and you can help cultivate these skills on your team as well, right? So we are talking about building their AI skills, absolutely. But these are just as valuable still in an AI world, and I argue even more valuable. So if you're a person who's really good at skill development, there is opportunity here to help develop these skills as well. So the goal, what we're talking about here on the impact of Gen AI on our work, is that really we are in a human AI world right now. So this is where we bring our human expertise, our domain knowledge, judgment, creativity, context, everything, and we combine it with our ability to use AI effectively. So we know, we understand what the tools can do, what they can't do, how to work with them, and how to evaluate response. Key skills when using AI effectively. That's really going to define your AI fluency, right? That is the skill that's going to define high performers in the next few years. You can obviously get this skill yourself, right? You work on this skill yourself, but you also have that opportunity to guide people on your team through this process to develop this skill as well, and many others. So as we check in on this one, Gen AI's impact on your work, I want you to think about how much Gen AI might change your job. Okay. And maybe it already has, and maybe this course is helping you realize that, but just take some time to think about it and what you might do to prepare. Okay. And the next thing is, what soft skills should you work on in the next year? Okay. So picking some soft skills that you can focus on, like one, two, right, that will prepare you to work in human AI environments as well. Now let's dive into responsible AI use and your role as a manager in communicating that use. This goes back to one of the key roles in managing AI is managing the AI risk and responsibility. So we're going to get tactical here. I will say this quote really sums up why we need responsible AI policies and discussion on our teams. It says, well-defined, accessible policies and guidelines give employees the confidence to explore AI's potential while staying within organizational, legal, and ethical boundaries. Strong policies also address safety concerns that often deter adoption. So employees need guidelines. They need guardrails, right? And although you might not be the person writing the responsible AI policy, your ability to communicate it, answer questions about it, and model it is essential as a manager. So these aren't your check-in questions, but this is some reflection at the beginning of this. If you think about your organization right now, where do people go on your team if they have a question about AI? General question, they're not sure. Do they go to you? Do they go to a department? Do they go to a Slack channel? If they identify a biased AI output, where do they go? If they want to start using a new AI tool, where do they go? These are all really relevant questions because it tells you a little bit about the state of responsible AI in your organization and whether or not people know where they should go when they run into challenges or simply want to use a new AI tool. Successful AI adoption starts with guardrails, okay? Employees need clarity on the boundaries of AI use. Employees need to know approved AI tools for work, AI tools that are not allowed, process for trying new AI tools, where to ask these AI questions, how to raise AI ethics or fairness concerns, and approve data uses in data privacy guidelines. All of that is part of a responsible AI policy and also being able to communicate responsible AI use. Now, I talk about this raising concerns because these AI models, they do some weird things. And sometimes you notice discrepancies if you're testing different models. And this is an example here. I used a tool called LM Arena where you can compare outputs on different models. I'll link to it if you're curious. Not a tool that you need to use, but certainly interesting. And I asked it to rank 3 resumes. And you can see there's one model on the left, assistant A, and one model on the right, assistant B, and they ranked them differently. Super interesting. That raises concerns, right? Ranking resumes is a key AI use case in HR. Okay. So what's happening here? What should I do if I'm an employee and I've noticed that our 2 models, we're using 2 different tools and they rank resumes differently? I need somewhere to go, right? And my responsible AI policy should give me a contact or a place to go. Or if I have a manager who's been communicating about data privacy, responsible AI use, and so on, I know that I can go to that manager and raise my concerns. And that is what we're talking about here, is creating that environment around responsible AI use, not just what is responsible AI use, but also creating a trusted environment where people can come to us where they have a concern about responsible use. So what we're really talking about is safe, fair, and transparent use of AI. In the resources, I'm going to share examples of responsible AI policies from different companies and also guidance around creating your own if you're in an organization that doesn't have this. Creating responsible AI policies is a course in itself, so we're not going super deep. But what this looks like in practice for you, okay, and what you need in your organization if you're going to be messaging this, is that you need a definition of what AI tools can be used, what can't, and what the process looks like. Okay, for using AI tools. Now, some people will say, we can use anything in our organization. Great. If you can use anything, great. Make that explicit, right? But then be very clear on what those data privacy standards are, right? Because different tools are going to use your data differently, and we need to protect sensitive data and information when using AI tools. Also, communicating data privacy standards is key. We covered that in previous videos. Establishing regular reviews of AI-generated outputs for fairness, bias, and accuracy. So you're simply checking in on the type of outputs that your team is producing. You know, do they look good? Are they good quality? Are they accurate? Do they contain bias? And so on. Communicating how and where to raise concerns. And again, going back to, can you create this environment of trust on your team? Where should people go with concerns? If it's you, great. Be explicit about that. And then talk openly about where AI is being used. When we talk about where AI is being used, you have a better sense of what's happening on your team. So you can then know identify if AI is being used in places where it shouldn't be used, whether that's based on, the policies at your work, or also if it's being used in a way that might be unethical. So manager's role, your role is to communicate the clear boundaries on AI use. Review your company's AI and data privacy policies, identify and communicate specific behaviors your team needs to follow when using AI. And again, you don't have to be strict about this, but ensuring that the message has been delivered, because what we find is that in some cases, organizations have a responsible AI policy. It's living on a SharePoint slide that nobody visits and nobody even knows it exists, right? So that's where you come in communicating this. Making responsible use visible in conversations about evaluating new AI tools, verifying outputs, and avoiding sensitive data. This starts to become repetitive, but it's important as we think about how all of this fits together. Good example, if you are, let's say you've signed up to demo a new AI tool for your team. Maybe it's a specific tool for your function. Ask them, the vendor, questions about responsible AI use. Ask them how they handle sensitive data, what they consider to be sensitive data, right? That is modeling responsible AI use in conversation. So if your company doesn't have a responsible AI policy, here are some things you can do. You can create one for your team alone. Okay. You can ask what tools people are using and how they use them, so you have a good sense of what's going on. You can teach about data safety and share and how to share ethical concerns. You can agree on 2 to 3 team rules everyone can follow right now. And they can be as simple as, don't use sensitive data. Here's the sensitive data you should not use. That is a team rule. Share what you learn with leadership so you can push for clarity, because in the end, if your company wants people to use AI, they need to have a responsible AI use policy, and it needs to be detailed and up to date. You can also revisit this every month and update as company direction evolves. Now, this is great for people who are really on the side of policy, who are interested in the ethical and responsible use. This is where you shine. So here is your check-in for this video. What parts of your company's AI tool use policy do you clearly understand, and where do you feel uncertain? And I'm really focused on tools here because right now, with the overwhelming amount of tools that we have in our organization, we managers are getting a lot of questions on which tools people can and cannot use. So think about your company's AI tool use policy, if you even have one, okay? If you don't, then think about what you need clarity on still, even if you don't have that. And then what data privacy rules do you need to reinforce with your team when they use AI tools? And what questions do you still need answers? Okay. Have some reflection on those, and I'll see you in the next video. Let's talk about quality when it comes to AI. The reality on the ground is that there are a lot of low quality outputs when it comes to AI. Anyone can generate an AI output now, right? They can make something with AI, but just because they can make something with it doesn't mean it's quality, and it doesn't mean it's actually useful to you in the work context. So, what we mean by low quality AI outputs, we mean low effort, unhelpful AI generated work, and it's work that is having a significant impact on our teams. In fact, Harvard Business Review came out with a study in September 2025 that coined the term work slop, which is a great term, to define this low quality AI outputs and its impact on teams. And what they found is that it's actually destroying productivity. It's actually making things worse. AI is supposed to make us more productive. Low quality AI outputs are making us less productive. And it's also reducing trust on our teams as well, because people that are producing a low quality AI outputs are creating more work for their peers and their colleagues, and that is reducing trust between team members. So this is a big problem, and something that is you have to look out for when you're first starting to use AI in your team, or if you've been using it for a while. So what they found in this is that half of the people surveyed viewed colleagues who sent work slop as less creative, capable, and reliable than they did before receiving the output. 42% saw these colleagues who used low quality AI work as less trustworthy, and 37% saw that colleague as less intelligent. Whew. So when we talk about AI's impact, you can start to see here what the impact is, right? So it is important that the AI outputs are actually quality. And you can kind of see an example here. This is an output, two different outputs, same model, same prompt. On a data set about feedback from an ice cream social. It's fake. I mean, you can see the difference. Even just looking at them, you don't even have to read them. You could pause to read them if you'd like. But the reality is that you're going to get different outputs depending on how you prompt. And if you don't know what a good quality output is, it's hard to make a good quality output. So one of your roles as a manager, and certainly something you can delegate, is to encourage quality AI outputs. And you do that by defining what good looks like in the context of your teamwork. Okay. Now, this is very much contextualized to your team and to the work that they do, but you know what good looks like. You evaluate them on good work. So help them understand what good looks like in the context of AI outputs. How do you do this? Well, one, review AI outputs in one-on-ones and team meetings, right? Again, going back to if we're sharing prompts, we're also sharing outputs. Right? We're going to see what the output is. Is it good quality? Maybe not focus on so much that's bad quality, but what can make this more quality? What can make this more useful? Asking questions like that is super helpful. Creating reusable prompt templates that include instructions about formatting, tone, style. So formatting, tone, style in your prompt dictates the quality of the outputs, right? It dictates the way in which someone is going to receive that information, whether it's a wall of text or it's a nicely bulleted output. Again, it's going to depend on the context of what they're creating. And then you can also share examples of quality outputs and explain why it's quality, what makes it quality, right? Again, you hear this theme that I keep talking about, them having conversations about AI, right? What is quality? What good prompts look like? And so on. Having this conversation around AI is key. So here's your check-in on quality outputs. What does quality AI look like? Quality AI work look like for your team? And furthermore, where can you find examples of quality AI outputs on your team? So this really does require you to kind of go in and not just reflect, but look around, poke around, and that, depending on your team, might be scary, or depending on your team, might be, yeah, you might find some really good stuff. So go poke around, reflect, but poke around and see what you find. Now we're moving into the part of AI adoption that is far more focused on the cultural piece and the people, processes, and coaching. AI adoption isn't so much about the tools themselves as it is about the people and the processes. Right? The shiny technology tends to get all the headlines, but the reality is that in order to make AI stick and get the benefits of AI, you need to create a culture where your employees feel psychologically safe to experiment, ask questions, and so on. So in this video, we are talking about creating psychological safety on your team. If you're new to the term, quick definition, because by this point it's clear I love a definition. Psychological safety is a workplace environment where individuals feel safe to take risks, express their ideas, admit mistakes, and ask questions without fear of embarrassment, punishment, or professional harm. And I will tell you, this is absolutely essential when it comes to learning about AI. It's even something that managers have to practice, right? So if you're taking this and you're more at the top, you need to ensure that your direct reports, who are also managers, feel this kind of psychological safety when working with AI. Otherwise, people aren't going to come to you with questions. They're not going to be able to share their learnings openly without fear of embarrassment or even professional harm when AI makes a mistake. So this is fundamental when it comes to AI adoption. And there's this really great article I'll link to in the resources from MIT that talks about creating psychological safety in the AI era. And it says the biggest red flag is when AI is treated like an IT project instead of the strategic and cultural inflection point that it is. That almost always leads to shallow adoption and deeper resistance. Translation: if you think this is just about connecting AI tools and telling people to use them, you're not going to see the results that you want, right? So when we go back to kind of like this timeline of what it looks like to guide your teams through experimentation to AI adoption, that full integration, what we're talking about here is creating the environment to get to that middle stage, that collaboration stage where your team is actually sharing what's happening. They're sharing what works. You get to showcase the really cool examples of how AI is being used. You get to talk about learnings and really start to talk about what some of the best practices are. You get to that point by creating psychological safety, by creating the conditions where people can talk about their learnings, their failures, their wins, and they're given space to do that, right? Without fear of being judged or of this, causing harm to them professionally. And I repeat this because in some organizations, depending on your culture, failure is seen as a negative. But the reality is when you're working with AI, you are going to fail at some point. And that's because AI doesn't behave how most people think it's going to behave. There is inherent that there will be failures in its use, whether you're building with it, whether you're integrating it into your teams, or whether you're just simply experimenting with what it can do. Okay. So companies with experiment-friendly cultures have greater success with AI projects. 4 in 5 leaders agree that organizations fostering psychological safety are more successful at adopting AI, and 84% have observed connections between psychological safety and tangible AI outcomes. So basically, this is just the data that reiterates what I just told you, right? In order to get those experiment-friendly cultures and lead to collaboration, you need to have that psychological safety. So what does this look like? Well, one, it looks like managers supporting AI adoption, right? The data also shows that workers who had a good relationship with their manager and were satisfied with the relationship with their manager tended to agree that technology helps them in their work. It helps them accomplish more in their job, and that they feel confident their employer will retrain me for a different job if AI replaces them. And that last one is so key, right? Because there's a lot of fear about being replaced by AI, and it's valid. Okay. So the stronger that relationship is between managers and direct reports, the greater success you will see in AI adoption. And that's because the managers are the ones that provide that psychological safety. So we know it's important. So how do we get there? Well, we can start with some kind of low level tactics. One, your ability to admit uncertainty is key, and this goes for anyone, whether you're just starting out as a manager. If you're taking this, you're more at the top of the food chain. Being able to say, "I don't know. Let's figure this out together," is key. And this is the higher up in the organization, the trickier this is for you, because you are told that you are there to provide certainty. And so admitting uncertainty might be feel that you are going against some of these leadership qualities. But in this AI age, we actually need you to admit when you're uncertain and make a plan for figuring that out together. Addressing the fears directly. We'll talk more about this in the conversations video about having awkward conversations about AI, but you need to engage in some of the concerns around AI. Right? That could be one-on-one conversations. That could be making statements about it. If you are leading an all hands, you need to address the fear of AI directly and not push it aside. You can slow down the pace and lower the stakes. Look, there's a lot of pressure to use AI. Go, go, go. We want to see results. You have the capacity on your team to set boundaries around what that looks like, right? And let your team know, hey, this isn't everything. We don't need immediate results. We have 3 months to experiment and figure out what works. That's an example of lowering the stakes. You create those safe spaces to experiment. Again, this goes back to making time, but also being able to say, look, I want to see where AI failed this week. Simply phrasing it like that gives people permission to make mistakes with AI. And then you bring out a failure and you can say, why did this fail? Let's look at this. Is it because this isn't a good use case for AI? Or is it maybe we could do something different with the prompt, right? These are educational moments. And then I want you to reward learning over outcomes. Yes, we all want outcomes. We want metrics. And we're going to talk about measuring the results of AI in later videos. But the reality is you also need to reward that learning. Right? Spotlight the people that are taking time to learn. Encourage people to share what they're learning. Encourage people to share the resources that they are learning from, right? Encourage that over the actual outcomes. Now, that's not to say when you get an outcome, you ignore it. By all means, if you have a successful AI use and it's saving time on the team, shout that, share that, but also share the learnings as well. So here we are, a summary. Encourage your team to experiment first and then share the results. Okay. Again, pretty common theme at this point. We're bringing it out in the open. We're talking about it because every prompt, success, and failure teaches us how to think and work with AI. Okay. This is how we move from that individual experimentation phase to that collaboration phase by bringing AI out in conversations. So check in. When was the last time you publicly said, I don't know, or I got this wrong about AI in front of your team? Okay. And no worries if you haven't done that yet. This might be new to you. Okay. If you haven't, try it. If someone on your team tried using AI this week and it completely failed, would they tell you about it? Okay. And if not, what can you do to create the conditions where they might? Okay. Those are your reflection questions. So have a thought, have a think on those, and meet me back for the next video. So let's build on that idea of creating psychological safety and dive into tactically creating these learning environments for AI. So making that space where your employees can learn about AI and figure out how it works. The goal here is to really shape learning about AI around curiosity about what is possible with AI. Because the reality is AI can't do everything. And we need to learn what AI can do just as much as we need to learn what it can't do. But the way that we get there is through curiosity, because curiosity is the foundation of learning. So the thing about generative AI is that it is best learned through experimentation. You've heard me talk about experimentation already. Getting people hands-on with generative AI through prompting and sharing prompts builds that understanding, right? We've covered that quite a bit. No two people use generative AI tools the same. That's why I encourage all that sharing, because you learn from each other. There are so many clever, interesting ways to use AI. I've been doing this for years now, and I'm always learning about new use cases. Generative AI tools also behave differently depending on the context, prompt phrasing, and data. So being able to experiment and see what data work, what prompts work, that takes time. Okay. You saw in the prompting video earlier, it takes time to get good prompts and good outputs, and you have to iterate with them. So you need to have that time for experimentation. And you need to be explicit about it. So that way people don't think, oh, if I don't get the right output right away, something's wrong with me. No, it takes time to get the right prompts and the output. Curiosity leads to skill growth faster than formal training alone. Now, formal training is great. You're here, you're learning. But the reality is after this, you have to use your curiosity to say, okay, what next? What's working? What else can we do? right? I'm giving you the foundation right now, but curiosity is what's going to lead you through AI chaos. So again, going back to that study that I cited and I linked to, informal try it challenges and playful competitions can help employees build familiarity and confidence without the fear of breaking something. I love this one. This is the key to creating those learning environments, right? So we actually set up these moments for learning, right? And to try it and to see what happens. And so what does this look like? So I mentioned Zapier before, but Zapier writes so much about their AI transformation work that they really have so much good content on things you can do. And someone from there, one of their leaders, posted about how they hosted a hackathon, and not just for engineers, as you can see, but 70% of the group participated in a hackathon where everyone gets together and figures out what they can do with AI. Right? How cool is that? They had a hack week that's described as a chance to experiment, prototype, and see what they could do with AI tools together. And so you see them shouting out the winning project. I will also put in the link a link to this where they go through how they thought through their hack week and just some of the tactics in case you want to do something yourself. But that's a way that when you think about what can I create, these environments, formal or informal, for people to learn, for people to get hands on. What does that look like? So you can do this on a micro level if you're not in a position to create a full hack week or a hack day. You can start by just encouraging these discussions about AI in team meetings. And I've alluded to this in multiple videos, but here's where we get explicit, where you actually say, so everyone, what's working with AI? Okay. What's not working? I guarantee you, you're going to get some answers, right? That you can then build on. Other questions. I use this all the time. What surprised you about AI this week? What did you learn about AI these weeks? These are all questions I learn in my facilitation questions on teams, in classes, and so on. And I tell you, people want to talk, okay? And you don't have to be an expert to facilitate these discussions. And that's exactly what it is. It's facilitation. It's not giving all the answers. And then, of course, you have show and tell, encouraging people to show what they've done with AI. So how do we create a learning environment for AI? Some tactics. One, we are normalizing not knowing everything about AI. We cannot. Okay, we're all learning together. You can frame AI adoption as a shared learning process, not an evaluation of competence. We're not seeing who could be the best at AI, right? We are looking for what we are learning and what are we learning together. Be transparent about how AI might change work and about the unknowns. You can acknowledge that AI is changing jobs. Yes. You can acknowledge that AI is being used in place of some jobs. Yes. And you can also acknowledge that we don't know how it's going to turn out, but we're going to figure it out together and that you are building the skills together to adapt in this AI world. Okay. Encourage your team to share challenges they face when using AI tools. So what's going wrong with the tools? Treat mistakes or failures as learning opportunities. So, that didn't work out. What did you learn? What do you think could be different next time, right? All ways to facilitate a conversation around this. You can celebrate and publicize winnings and learnings. I would love to see more of this in all hands, especially up in the upper ranks, calling out people that learned something or did something cool. It shouldn't just be the ones that did something with AI, but people that learned something as well. And showcase your own learnings about AI. Anyone at any level of management can do that. So here are your check-ins for this week. We have 3 for this video here. What team meetings are a good fit for adding 15 minutes of AI talk? So going back to those questions, what team meetings in your week or month might be a good fit for those questions? What's a low-lift way that you could celebrate AI learnings or projects on your team? So nothing fancy, but how can you make this a celebratory thing? Would your company be open to a hack day or a hack week like Zapier's? Why or why not? Now, this takes a more organizational support, but depending on your organization, this may be a good fit for you. So check out their article on how they did it. So have a think on these questions and then start putting them into place. Start creating those learning environments so AI success can thrive on your team. All right, let's get into the tactics here when it comes to actually coaching teams through AI use. I'm going to start off with this quote that was in that Gallup article, "The manager support drives employee AI adoption." I love this quote because it really does sum up kind of what managers are doing. It says, because of their day-to-day connection with employees, managers are uniquely positioned to champion AI by modeling its use, answering questions, and showing how it connects to employees' daily work. That is what you are doing in your role. We've talked about some of this about modeling responsible AI use and data privacy. We also talked about answering questions that you don't have to be an expert, but you can synthesize information, things that you've learned from someone else on the team that's using AI or someone else from another department using AI. You can synthesize that information and use that to help answer questions when people come to you with problems with AI or doubts and so on. So I want to say that when it comes to coaching on AI, I'm going to go back to that. The point I made earlier at the start of the course, which was you don't have to be an expert. I'm going to remind you of that because I'm teaching you a lot here, but you still don't have to know everything in order to do this. Because fundamentally, when you are coaching about AI, you are using the skills that you already have as a manager. They are skills that you apply every day in a management capacity. And they are one, asking questions to draw out their thinking, right? Someone comes to you and says, this AI is not working. You can ask, well, what happened? Show me what's going on, right? Reviewing work and giving feedback. So being able to look at AI outputs and say, let's see, could we make this better? Or that doesn't look like the quality that we would expect on for this task. Let's talk about how we can make this better, right? Those are the same skills you use in any other context when you're managing. And then also setting those boundaries and standards. We talked a lot about the responsible AI use in guardrails. So when we think about the AI coaching conversation, this really has 4 steps. And I want you to think about a situation where someone comes to you and say, like, this isn't working. Oftentimes, that's when managers hear from people, because when something's not working. So they've come to you and said, this AI output doesn't work. This AI tool doesn't work. You say, okay, you're going to start to ask, well, show me what you tried. Walk me through your process, right? Get visibility into what they did. Then you're going to explore, help them see the gap. So maybe they didn't give it enough context. Maybe they didn't set a persona. Ask, what context did you give it? What were you hoping for, right? Because when we get them to talk about what they actually wanted, we can start to see the gap between the instructions they gave and what they actually want. Then you want to strengthen, you want to build the capability through iteration. So now you say, okay, what could we do different? What if we did this thing here, right? So you make a suggestion, you try, and then offer to try it together. So now you're collaborating on this. Again, this should feel familiar from other management conversations. The goal here is to really get them thinking through their process and trying different things. And oftentimes that's helpful when you are using AI. I can tell you sometimes you just get down a rabbit hole with AI where nothing's working and it's super frustrating. And even I have been there where I just want to throw my laptop out the window. So having another person come in is super helpful, and you can play that role. And then you want to reinforce. So this is where I make learning stick. We say, okay, well, what did you learn in this? Right? So getting them to reflect. And when will you use this again? So is this applicable in other situations? So that is what the conversation looks like. How do you build these coaching habits? Well, one, you work on making the AI work visible. So ask to see prompts, iterations, decision-making processes. You want to know how they think about AI. And the more you do this with your team members, the more you're going to start to see the different ways people are approaching it and figure out what the best approach is. Coach in the moment. When you see AI assisted work, take 3 minutes to ask coaching questions. Okay. You can just do this whether there's a problem or not. Okay. Normalize iteration. This goes back to we are building that prompt and iteration skill. The best AI users iterate constantly. Model that it's normal and expected to refine and improve outputs. Okay. It takes time to get the right output. Keep learning about AI. Ask for regular updates on AI trends from curious team members and upskill yourself. Again, you don't have to know everything, and you're getting a big chunk even in this course. But that curiosity, that willingness to keep learning about AI, that also applies to you. And that's going to also help build your coaching habits because it's going to give you more insight and more confidence when talking about AI. So let's have a little bit of a check-in. Where do you feel the strongest when offering feedback on AI work? Okay. When you identify that, lean into that when you're actually coaching. What do you need to learn about AI to feel more confident about your coaching abilities? And how will you learn it? So again, going back to that upskilling yourself. Okay. Have a think about this, and I'll see you in the next video. All right, let's make your life easier by talking about AI champions. AI champions are one of your greatest assets when it comes to successful AI adoption on your teams. But not only that, they're going to make your life easier because at this point, I've told you so much about what you have to be doing in the workplace to facilitate AI discussions, to help troubleshoot AI outputs, and really create the environment for your employees to succeed with AI. And it's been a lot on you. But the reality is that you likely have people on your team or in your department that you can also tap to help you with your AI adoption efforts. And these people are AI champions. So AI champions are essentially power users of AI. They are employees who actively experiment with generative AI. They discover useful applications and share what works and or teach others. So you can start to see where they are incredibly valuable to have on your team because they can do a lot of the troubleshooting of AI. They can share what's working with AI. They can lead discussions about AI and so on. So that takes off some of the pressure from you, i.e., you can delegate. But these champions, these peers have a huge effect on AI adoption efforts. In the survey on AI in the workplace from Irrational Labs, I'll link to it of course, they found that 87 participants know at least one person who uses AI. So in their group, and in that group, they were 3 times likely to have used AI themselves in the past week than those who don't know anyone who uses AI. So what we see is this network effect. You have one person that's using it, that's visible, that talks about it. That's going to motivate other people to do so as well. So it's incredibly valuable to have on your team. So AI champions are early adopters who, one, accelerate team learning through peer examples. They know the work, they share the work, they're closest to the work. Okay. They spot opportunities to improve workflows with AI. So we're going to talk in future videos soon about specifically AI workflows. But right here is what I'm talking about are the people who understand the work and understand where AI fits. They understand AI capabilities, and so they can help you spot those opportunities. They also reduce dependence on managers for the day-to-day AI questions. So I've talked a lot about the role of a manager being able to answer questions and also facilitate discussions. AI champions can do that too. And you can oftentimes delegate to them. And oftentimes they want to. I can tell you as a former AI champion in my role, I was doing that all the time. I was thrilled. I wanted to learn more. They're oftentimes very curious people who want to learn more about AI and share their learning. So tap into that energy. Where do we find our AI champions? Well, they already use AI in their work without being asked to. They talk about new tools or techniques, and they naturally help others troubleshoot or explore options. So look for those people in the meetings that speak up about AI, that are giving advice. Ask people on the team, hey, who's best at troubleshooting AI? Who's really a helper around this? Who do you learn from on the team or look to? Right? Those are going to be your AI champions. And this doesn't have to be a formal role, though you might want to consider adding this to the responsibilities because this is a very in-demand skill set right now. Other companies are looking for this skill set. So, qualities of AI champions. One, they're curious and experimental. They already have that natural drive. They're self-directed. They are taking the initiative to learn about AI on their own. They share practical tips and examples and conversations. They spot workflow friction. So it's someone who's like, this could be improved. If they already are thinking like that, chances are they're going to be an AI champion. They help teammates learn and they test and report what works, right? So they're going back to that experimental mindset. They test, they see what works, they report what doesn't, and so on. So that is how you find them. So start looking for them, those qualities, start looking for those habits, look in team meetings, ask your direct reports, and so on. And once you find them, I want you to empower them to do things. So document and share effective prompts or use cases. We covered this earlier about the prompts. Having them gather up prompts that work for the team and encourage team use is essential. Give them that prompt library from earlier videos and resources and have them see what they can find. They can offer informal coaching or office hours for teammate. They can provide feedback on what's working right now on your team when it comes to learning about AI. You can use that feedback to guide future training. They also can keep up on tools, ideas for experimentation, and share out with others. So again, I talked so much about bringing AI into the conversation. They can do this. They can help you with this. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, it's like, okay, let's delegate, right? So here's your check-in on AI champions. I want you to think about on your list of AI tasks, maybe things we've talked about today, maybe others that you have, could be a good fit to delegate to an AI champion on your team? And then who are the people on your team who are naturally curious, experiment with AI, and engage with others around the topic? Okay. I wish you all the luck in this unit. I want you to go out and find those AI champions and make your life a little bit easier. All right, let's talk about change and navigating conversations around change, specifically some of the more awkward conversations that come up when we are dealing with AI in the workplace. Now, I say awkward. What I mean by this is those uncomfortable conversations where you don't feel prepared to navigate the topic, whether you're not feeling confident about your AI use, or maybe you're also share some of those concerns. Either way, they're awkward conversations and you don't feel prepared. So, this is a video to help you feel more prepared for those conversations with team members and direct reports. So, the thing about AI is that it evokes a range of emotions in people. We have people on teams who are stoked about AI. They love AI. They want to use it all the time. And on that same team, you'll have someone who is like, I'm morally against AI. We'll never use AI. And then you have everybody in between. And it is wild. I encounter this all the time, these extremes. Anytime you have change inside an organization or change to team workflows, you are going to get resistance. Like this is just part of change management. What's interesting on the AI side is the fact that one, AI has moved so fast and caused so much disruption and uncertainty is that we give elevated levels of that, right? AI is causing disruption, not just in the workplace, but in personal lives as well. There are a lot of strong opinions on it, and people are eager almost to share some of those opinions. So that means you as a manager have to engage in conversations about AI. And there are ways that you can approach these conversations that make it a little bit easier, right, for you and your direct reports, and make it so you can actually make progress around barriers around AI and resistance to adoption. So how do we do that? One, we talk about navigating the awkward conversations. They're going to be awkward. You can't get away from that. Just accept it. It'll be awkward, but we're going to do it anyways because that's what being a manager is about, is going through these awkward conversations. The first thing to do is to listen for the real concern. When someone comes to you on their thoughts about AI and they're saying something like, AI is going to take my job, I'm not going to use it. What you want to do is to get beyond the initial statement. What do they really mean? What is the concern here? And I say this because especially in that situation, it is tempting for managers to say AI is not going to take your job and completely dismiss it. And what that does is it harms the trust in your relationship between your direct report and you, because the reality is they are seeing examples of AI taking jobs out in the open marketplace. We see it in the headlines and the articles and reports and the data. So you're dismissing them and also, basically telling them it's not happening when it's happening. So don't do that. Engage and said, okay, what makes you feel that way? What's your concern here? What do you think about what you see here in this organization, right? You have an opportunity to more lean into the conversation rather than dismissing. And that's what I'm encouraging you to do with all of these awkward conversations about AI. In the next slide, I'm going to give you 6 examples of AI conversations that tend to come up and how you can deal with it. But the first step is being open and embracing active listening. Okay. The other thing I want you to do is to distinguish tool and skill problems from adoption resistance, because they are not the same thing. Sometimes people will come to you and say, AI doesn't work, I don't want to use it. And that's not necessarily resistance. It oftentimes is they don't understand how the tools work. They've been told that AI is easy to use and it actually isn't for them. Or maybe they just don't understand how to prompt well and don't get good outputs and just don't see the point. Okay. That is a different opportunity to engage them and teach them. Right. So you have to distinguish between the tool use and actual resistance to using AI. And then you can also use these conversations as feedback. So if you have people that are complaining about a tool, now one person complaining about it, okay, you can see how you can coach them on adapting. But if you have 6 people on your team complaining about an AI tool, chances are it's the tool problem, because the reality is not all AI tools are user-friendly. Okay. So if you are getting consistent negative feedback across multiple team members, chances are there's a change that needs to happen, and that's useful for you. So these awkward conversations actually turn into something that is useful. So let's talk about navigating these tricky conversations around change and AI. These are some of these are 6 examples of typical conversations around AI and how you can handle it. And you may want to pause and take screenshots here. The first one is I tried it and it didn't work. Okay. This is pretty common. And what's really happening behind the scenes here is that they don't actually know how to prompt effectively or evaluate outputs. Okay. What you need to do here is just focus simply on that skill building. We talked earlier about building prompting and iteration skills. Show them how to prompt well, or have someone on your team show them that, an AI champion or a peer, right? Delegate. The point is you have to teach them how to prompt and iterate well so they actually see value. This is a skill issue when they talk about this. It's going to replace my job, the classic one. Okay, so what they're really, the real issue here is it's a fear and lack of clarity about the future. This is where you offer transparency. You can validate them. Yes, we're seeing the headlines about that, but in our organization, this is our goal. And then show them examples of where people are using AI to augment their skill set, right? They're using it as a collaboration tool, not a replacement. Emphasize that people with AI skills are in demand. Right now, employers are paying a premium for people with AI skills, right? So show them that. Of course, this will only work if your organization is not actively replacing people with AI. Okay. If they are, this is not going to be a useful tactic, but for most organizations, it does work. If someone says, I just don't trust AI, okay. The real issue here is that they have valid concerns about accuracy, bias, and ethical use. And I tell you, this is super helpful to have on your team because now you have someone that you can engage them around those critical thinking skills. They have the critical thinking skills. Help motivate them to apply them to AI, right? Teach them the critical evaluation skills. Figure out where they can fit in determining new processes for evaluating all of these AI outputs. Get them involved around good ideas to fact check, right? Or help them create clear policies around appropriate AI use, right? Get them involved in different parts of the company. Maybe there's committees on ethical AI and responsible AI. Advocate for them there. Direct that energy to a place where they will thrive, because I guarantee you there is a place, right? And you want to direct that energy. Here are three more types of conversations. We have the I don't have time to learn it. These are people who are overwhelmed. They don't see the immediate ROI. In this case, break the work down for them. Start small. It can feel very overwhelming. Okay. So encourage them to find one repetitive task that AI can eliminate. Okay. Give them that quick win, get them to it, and then give them permission. Give them 30 minutes to work on it each week and check in each week to see the progress that is being made. Then we have the conversations about being morally opposed. Now, they associate AI with harm and loss of human control, and that's understandable because AI does have harmful effects. Okay, and that is well documented. And so your goal here is not to argue. I would encourage the responsible, limited use. We don't have to use it for everything, only where necessary. Show where human judgment stays in charge. So again, where the human oversight belongs in the process, and then encourage the starting with low risk tasks. So things that are not going to be highly impactful or in a high risk situation that they might be opposed to. Now, morally opposed can cover a lot of categories. So in the end, this may not work entirely. So make it acceptable to opt out. If they want to opt out, let them opt out. Okay. But you are still going to have conversations on your team about AI and so on. And they're encouraged to share their opinion. Okay. The last one is it's cheating. Some people do feel that AI is cheating, that it is giving people abilities that they shouldn't have. Where it undermines actual human skills, effort, and fairness. And okay, your goal here is to reframe AI as assistance, not substitution. You clarify where judgment and accountability are still important, and you show example where AI supports thinking rather than replaces it. Okay, so this is how we can approach some of these conversations about AI. Does it make it less awkward? Absolutely not, but it gives you a path through, and in a lot of cases, it gives you direction. So that way you can give employees direction to make progress with AI and learn. Again, we're framing this as a learning opportunity for everyone on the team, even people who might be resistant. So better questions that you can ask about AI in your one-on-ones to help guide this conversation. One, what's one thing AI made harder this week? Okay. Ask that and you'll start to learn some things. Where did you choose not to use AI and why? I've said this before, but knowing where to use AI and where not to use it is just as important. Okay. You need to know both, and you learn from them when they tell you these things. Or you might learn there's an opportunity maybe they could have used AI, they just weren't using it in a way that was useful. What would make blank tool more useful? So if you have a specific tool, asking what would make Copilot more useful to you? Okay. What questions about AI do you have that you haven't asked? I love this one. It's very open-ended, and you start to learn a lot from those responsibles. And again, create that trust around talking about AI, even when it's not working. So let's check in. Here are your reflection questions for awkward conversations about AI. When someone on your team expresses frustration or fear about AI, what's your typical first response? And the next one, think about the last negative comment you heard about AI in your team. What was the real issue underneath the surface complaint? Okay. And go further. If you identify the real issue, how might you engage in a conversation about it? Okay. I hope you feel more prepared to go forth and navigate these awkward conversations. They're a part of change, they're going to happen. And so now you are prepared to navigate it. Okay, we've reached the point of the course where we get to get into the details about actually using AI in the team's work, identifying the places where AI is going to add value on your team. And this probably is the thing that every leader thinks about when they're announcing their AI adoption initiative. They want you to get in there, figure out where AI works, find some use cases, and boom, we're going to see the results of AI. Now we know by this point there's a lot more to the AI adoption process, but this is the meat of it. So we are going to kick this off with actually talking about what an AI use case is and what an AI workflow is, because these two terms are often used incorrectly and often interchangeably. And so giving you a definition is going to help you better understand how to think about AI on your teams. So what is an AI use case? An AI use case is an individual task that you complete with AI assistance. So think about this. If you are turning to ChatGPT to summarize a document, that is an AI use case. Summarizing documents is an AI use case. It is based on AI's capabilities. Generative AI is very good at summarizing documents, okay? These are often one-time interactions that solve a specific problem. You turn to AI, you have it summarize something, and you move along. Maybe you come back to it a couple of times a month, okay? Same with summarizing a meeting transcript. And that might be something that you have AI do on occasion. That is an AI use case. Now, an AI workflow is a process, okay? It's a standardized process that defines AI and human roles to complete work tasks from start to finish, okay? So think of this as what you create once you've started to adopt AI on your teams. When you are using AI repeatedly to solve repetitive tasks, you are building AI workflows. And it's essentially being explicit about what the process looks like when AI is involved. So, an example here. Employee uploads data, AI analyzes data, AI generates a summary, and AI generates a presentation, and the manager reviews. This is now a weekly AI workflow that we have embedded on our team. And this is what you can report back to leadership. So, on the note of AI workflows, this is what you're building towards, okay? And AI workflows can be simple. We have some examples here where I'm clearly delineating where the human does work and where the AI does work. And in this case, I've just highlighted the AI work to make it easier to read. But you have examples here for knowledge management, you have them for problem solving, you have them for innovation tracking, right? And these are simple solutions. They don't have to be complex. In fact, I will tell you that your first AI workflows, right, that you are where you're trying to find where AI fits on your team should be simple. Don't make it complex, right? Because we start with small and then we build from there. So AI use cases and workflows, AI use cases, I want you to think about what can we do with AI and what problems can we solve with AI. This next one is exceptionally important. You are trying to solve business problems with AI. That's what you're doing, okay? I'm sure you have tons of problems on your team that you need solving. Your goal is to figure out, can AI do this? Okay. And once you've determined whether or not AI can do this, yes, AI can solve this problem, then you're going to turn it into a workflow and you're going to figure out how are we using AI to deliver value? Okay. That's a business question. What value am I getting from this by transforming our workflows to use AI? And we'll talk about metrics in a little bit. But essentially, what you are doing is you are taking an AI use case, turning it into a workflow once you've determined it works. Okay, you are translating a good idea. AI could help with this into a repeatable process that delivers value. That value is often going to be it saves time or saves money. Almost always, that is the value of generative AI in the workplace. So, if we think back to our timeline and your role in guiding your direct reports through this AI adoption process, we're moving from experimentation to collaboration, right, with all that coaching, to now in this integration. Because our goal is to get AI practices that are embedded in workflows. That means using AI's capabilities to transform how work gets done and measure the results so it delivers value. Now, there's a lot more to it. We're going to cover that in the future videos. But your role is really defining where AI fits into existing workflows and how it adds value. And if I keep repeating it, it's because it's that Simple. Now, is it easy to do? Is it easy to figure this out? No, it takes some time, but that is what you are building towards. Okay. The other thing to remember is that AI workflows get measured. Your use cases do not. So look at this statement here. AI summarizes incoming customer support tickets and drafts responses while a human reviews, edits, and decides on escalation. The result is 45% faster replies and more consistent answers. Whoo! That is an AI workflow. And you can see the result there is where you're talking about the value, right? So AI summarizes incoming customer support tickets. That's the use case. But then you put it in context. It tells it what it does, what the human does, and then the result. And there you have it. That is an AI workflow. And that is what you are delivering to management, to leaders when they say, how are you using AI and what results are you getting? This is a narrative that you create from an AI workflow. And that is what we're talking about over the next couple of videos. So you feel prepared to identify AI opportunities on your team and then deliver this narrative to leadership. And the reality is you only need one workflow to get started. Okay, so let's go build it. All right, let's get into the tactics now, specifically how we find those AI use cases on your team. At this point, you may have had leadership already say, hey, we need to find AI use cases, right? And when they do that, oftentimes what they are talking about is they need to figure out where AI fits on teams and inside the organization, right? And the driving question here is, what can we do with AI? And I love this question because it's actually really good framing for every individual, right? As we try to get our direct reports to use AI and experiment with AI, the driving question really is, what can we do with AI? And we start when we start using that question, we're framing things in a curiosity-based way, right? We're saying, be curious. What can we do? What's possible? But the other thing I like about it too is you're actually looking at, well, what are the capabilities of AI, and does it apply in the context of my job? So that's the individual question that everyone has to be asking. Your question also, though, as a manager is, what problems can we solve with AI? That's going to get you to the use cases, right? Because in the end, you are responsible for business outcomes. You're being measured on business outcomes, and you want AI use cases to map to business outcomes. So where do we start? Well, one, your team is already experimenting with AI. That's the reality. We're 3 years post ChatGPT. People are experimenting. They're drafting messages, summarizing data. Those are small things they're doing. Some are doing bigger things like setting up custom GPTs and custom tools to make their job go faster, maybe things for their teammate. Now, if you already know what your team is doing, great. That puts you in an excellent position to start figuring out what AI use cases are going to be a benefit to the team. If you don't, that suggests that you need to do some work on the culture there, making sure that people feel comfortable talking about AI, showing their work with AI, and that you are creating kind of that space for experimentation. Now, that's really what I want you to do right now. If you're looking for AI use cases, I want you to go in and look at what people are doing. That's why we did all that work on coaching people through AI use and having conversations about it, because I want you to see what people are doing with AI, right? If they are experimenting, you are likely in this experimental phase where people are, trying things out, but they're doing it on their own. They're excited, right? So you want to get everyone into this collaboration space. That's where you start to really see where the AI use cases are, the AI use cases that have value and help contribute to business outcomes. Because what we're building towards here is this integration. You want to get to the point where you can take an AI use case, embed it in a workflow to make an AI workflow, and then be able to produce results from it, right? You want to be able to show a change has happened, ideally for the better, and the metrics around that, right? We save time, we increase efficiencies, and so on. So you have to think about where generative AI adds value on your team, right? And really from this team perspective, we're not using AI for AI's sake, right? We're using it for a reason. And so there's generally like 4 categories where AI can benefit your team. One, creative capabilities. So it's extending your team's ability to create things. Operational capabilities. So reducing any kind of friction or repetition in their roles and on the team. Analytical capabilities. So really accelerating the time to insights, often around data and things like that. And then strategic abilities. So the support and strengthen decision making. So this is where generative AI is going to add value on your team. I have examples here. Feel free to pause this or check the resources. This is also in there as well. And if you're like, I'm still not sure, give it to your team members, your direct reports, because oftentimes they will be able to map what they're doing to this. So what should an AI use case be? Well, one, it should add value, right? I talked about that. And I say it over and over again because we want the ones that add value. That's saving time, reducing repetition, improving a system, reducing expenses. That's all value, right? They should be easy to test in a low risk, reversible way before we scale. I say this because oftentimes teams want to start big, right? Let's build an internal chatbot for our whole department that answers questions. Great idea. That's not small. And you even have to start testing it small before you roll it out. So you is on your team, you want to make sure that whatever AI use case you're using, it should be small and it should be reversible if it doesn't go well. Because the fact is, a lot of these experimentations don't always go the way we think they're going to go. So it should also solve that clearly defined problem, not a vague ambition to use AI. A lot of companies are like, great, we need everyone using AI. Great. What does that mean? Right? So your team start using AI. Now 95% of the office uses AI. Then what? Right? That doesn't solve a problem, right? We're not benefiting from AI. So really is what you're doing here is getting strategic about it. You're also giving these use cases a fit test. Okay. So you're essentially asking, does AI fit here when you see a use case? When you see someone on your team, your direct report using AI, you want to know, does this use case solve for a specific pain point, right? Does it save time, increase quality, or reduce burnout? Or are we just using it because it's cool? Right? Is there an accuracy requirement? If the AI hallucinates, is there a process for a human to catch it? So again, reiterating the importance of human oversight. And then data availability. Does the team have the necessary context or data to prompt the AI effectively? I found a lot of use cases are interesting in the beginning. We come up with AI use cases, and then it's like, oh, we actually don't have the data to do this. So here's a great example of what I mean to put this in practice. Let's take the pain point of onboarding. The problem with onboarding is that managers manually customize onboarding templates for each hire. The goal is obviously to reduce time managers spend customizing onboarding materials and timelines. AI can help with this, right? The use case really is personalizing onboarding templates. That's the use case. That's not the workflow. And that falls under your operational capabilities. So what's the fit test here? Well, does it have value alignment? Yeah, it solves a pain point. Accuracy alignment? Yeah, a human is going to review this, right? And some of the peers as well who might be responsible for that peer training. Data alignment. Maybe this is where you have to check in. Do you have the necessary information to make AI useful in this case, right? New hire data, existing onboarding templates, role specific learning requirements, and so on. So that's an example of applying the fit test to your AI use case. A thing to remember about AI, it's not great at everything. You can't assume it is. So when someone comes to you and said AI doesn't work here, I want you to listen and I want you to dive deeper and find out, is it the tool? Is it their prompting? Is it the data? Or is it simply that AI is just not good at this type of task? Okay. We'll talk in a minute what those tasks are. And I want you to compare the quality with and without AI. And this is important when we talk about getting to that quality output. I want you to know what the quality is before so you can compare it to the quality after and ensure that it is equal. So, a short list of things that generative AI is not good at. One, calculations, math, and forecasting. Look, there are tools that can do this, and some AI tools might connect to them, but out of the box, your general Geminis, Claudes, all that are not great at those. So, I would avoid using them. Consistency. You are going to get inconsistent outputs. That's just a reality of working with LLMs. They are probabilistic. That means you will not get consistent outputs. That's why human oversight matters. Accuracy, we've talked about. The last one, learning from you in memory. This is important. There's a narrative that AI learns from you. It can, but it often isn't. So most tools do not have the ability to learn from you. Now, some of them might have a memory function. And again, it depends. There are thousands of tools out there. Right now, if you pay for ChatGPT, you will have a memory, which means you don't always have to repeat yourself. But if you were doing a task, you might always have to upload the same data unless you create a custom tool. So know that there are some challenges even when you are embedding using an AI use case. And then details. So most often LLMs are really good at high level stuff, but when you get to the details, like use this specific word in a document, it may not do that, right? If you are in, for example, legal, you may find that some of the words that it uses are not accurate for what you need to do in the legal profession. So generative AI isn't great on details sometimes. So I want you to check in on identifying AI use cases. What are the use cases that are providing value on your team? So check in, look around, what's happening, what ones provide value, and do they pass the fit test? Okay. And think about what AI should not do on your team. So you have clear guidelines and guidelines and guardrails around those use cases, right? And you can communicate those to the team. Because once we have these AI use cases, then we're going to work on embedding them to make AI workflows in the next video. Now we're going to take those AI use cases and turn them into AI workflows. This is where we get to the part where AI is actually making an impact on your team. So your role in this piece here is really twofold. One, curation. You are finding the high value, you're identifying the high value tasks, those use cases, and you're going to move them from experiments to repeatable processes that benefit the team, right? We did some of that work in the last section. Then you are also going to calibrate. That means you are setting the quality bar. You are ensuring that the AI outputs are as quality as they were before you started using AI. Think of yourself like an editor in chief here who ensures the AI outputs are accurate, safe, and on brand. Now, do you have to become an editor in chief? No, you can delegate that, right? If you'd like. But you need to at least oversee the outputs of the person you've delegated to ensure that they are of the quality you expect in your work. So you are moving from one-off AI solutions to AI-enabled workflows. That means you're turning AI use cases into repeatable, scalable, and measurable systems. Systems is the key word here. So you are going to start small. I said that in the last one, and then you're going to scale what works because this is still experimenting, right? So you're going to identify the high impact workflows, right? Those repetitive tasks that require judgment. You evaluate the data quality and compliance, so ensuring the data is clean, consistent, and safe to use. In the previous video, we talked about, do you have the data? Now we need to figure out, is this the right data? You choose the tools, you pilot and validate. There'll be some experimentation there. Does this actually work? You document it and train members, right? So once you have something that works, document it, talk about it. So everybody knows who's involved in the process is going to know exactly how to use it. They know their prompt template, they know what data to use, and they know what the expected output is. And then you're going to monitor and optimize. That just simply means is pay attention. Is it working? And do we need to do anything to make it better? I would also add metrics. We're going to talk about all of this in the next couple of videos. And this process actually comes to from Zapier, who really leads, again, I've mentioned in the business transformation space on AI, and they write about it so publicly. So I'll be linking to this article there in your resources. So how do we get to AI workflows from all these AI use cases? Well, I want you to pick the ones that pass the repeatability test. What do I mean by this? Is the task done 3 times a week? Or month. This is going to depend on the pace of your organization. But if the pace is done frequently, if the task is done frequently, that's a sign it should be an AI workflow. Are there 2+ people doing it? Right? Does this benefit multiple people, not just one person on the team? And is there a consistent format? That means is the output something that is relatively consistent that everyone can agree, like, yeah, this is what we need. Okay. Let's go back to our example. Remember, onboarding. The problem is that managers manually customize onboarding templates for each new hire. Let's see. We've identified this as a use case, but it doesn't pass the AI workflow repeatability test. Well, it does happen 3 times a month. This is a high value, or excuse me, a team where we hire a lot of people. So yes, we need this. Does it involve 2 or more people? Yeah, it involves the person who's training, the expert, and the learner. Okay. And then results in one standard format, an onboarding document. Great. This is a great example of an AI workflow that you can transform an AI use case into a workflow. So how do we do that? Well, one, define the workflow. You identify the fixed steps where AI fits. Then you build a prompt template. So you create a fill in the blank prompt that anyone can use. So you're just making it easy. This is going to standardize the outputs. Okay. That prompt template just makes it so everyone doesn't have to be like create onboarding documents and everyone's coming up with different things. Okay. Then you establish the human in the loop stage. You define where the humans have oversight and who is responsible for reviewing the AI output before it moves to the next stage. So what does that look like? Define the onboarding workflow. This is the onboarding AI workflow. You have a new hire prompted data entered, right, from this template. That's a human. The AI generates personalized welcome materials. AI creates role-specific learning plan with milestones. Manager reviews and launches. Okay. Next, you build a prompt template. So this is where you ask AI to create a prompt template for this task, or I would delegate this to someone on your team if you're not great at prompting. I have an example here of what a prompt template might look like. And then when you fill it out, what it looks like. I'm going to include this in the resources so you can get a sense of what prompt template looks like if you're new to this. But this would be an example prompt template for an AI workflow for onboarding. Then you identify where humans maintain control. And you can see, I mentioned this earlier, but they're in the green. That's where humans are at. Now, you can show this to your team. You can put it in documentation, but this is very clear what the AI workflow is. So you've defined all of those pieces. And the reality is you only need one AI workflow to start. I know we're talking about, oh, we got to use AI, we got to use AI. But the reality is you only need one workflow to tell management, hey, tell your leadership management, hey, we're using AI. We're using it to improve our onboarding process and we're reducing the time that managers spend creating new hiring materials by 30%. Boom, look at that narrative, right? That is an example of finding AI use cases and transforming them into AI workflows that benefit the whole team. Now, if at this point you're like, wow, that sure is a lot of work, you're absolutely right. It's a lot of work. And you have to do it on top of your own job. So, condolences, but this is why it's so chaotic right now. It is a lot of work. So, what do we do with a lot of work? Well, we see, can AI do this? And the answer is yes. I have given you a prompt. And it is in your resources under AI workflow prompt templates. And you have two here, but I'm only going to demo one. The first one is an AI workflow architect. And if you have a use case, you can use this prompt to figure out what the workflow should be. Okay, it's just going to help you figure that out. And it's a prompt template. So you just describe your use case and then the prompt will do the rest. There's also a bonus one in here called the AI operations strategist. I'm not going to demo this. It's in here for you to experiment with. This is where you're overwhelmed and don't know where to start with you AI. You can use it when you feel like there's an inefficient process or you're stuck on your team. Put this in there, fill out the information, and you'll get some really interesting results to experiment with, right? So we're customizing it to your job because we know AI works differently depending on what role you are in. So I'm going to demo this. We are going to put this in Gemini over here, and I'm going to fill out my use case, manager use case, describe your AI use case, using AI to customize onboarding materials for new hires. Great. And that's all I need. And now it's going to tell the prompt is also going to tell AI what the required output should be. So it's a defined workflow. It's going to give you a prompt template that anyone on your team can use. So we're just making it easier for you. And then it's going to tell you where the human oversight happens and the guardrails. Okay. So look at this. Okay. So it's defining my workflow. It's telling me the steps, okay? Looks a lot like what we just went through. Now, this is your template that you can use in your role when you are standardizing this. Now, you may need to customize this to your own or delegate someone else to customize this, but at least it gets you started, okay? Human oversight, who's what the human what the human is responsible for, and any guardrails on it, okay? So, really cool stuff there. Use that, experiment with that. It's just going to make it easier to find AI workflows. So let's go back to our check-in on transforming AI use cases into workflows. I want you to think about what AI team use cases can be standardized in AI workflows. That should be obvious considering what we've covered. And who is the best prompter on your team? Who can make a prompt template? Who could you delegate this task to? Okay, have fun experimenting and finding those AI workflows. And remember, you only need one. Let's talk quickly about evaluating data for your AI workflows. Data, as you know, plays a large role in the success of using generative AI in your organization. So, this is particularly important when you are identifying use cases and turning them into workflows. As you know, data shapes AI outputs, and we have the examples from earlier about when you are using these tools. This is Gemini on the left; it asks for information. When you this is Claude on the right, connects to multiple systems for information. So defining the data that goes into your use case and your AI workflow is essential. It's going to help your team members understand what's necessary so they can get the output that they are expecting from the AI workflow. So I'm going to include this in your resources, but these are the types of data that you might use in a use case or a workflow. So this is also helpful to guide your direct reports on some of the information that may supplement their prompts to get better outputs and so on. So as you are looking at use cases and workflows, I want you to think, do you have enough data for the workflow? We touched on this in the use case video, but go further. Can you point to where the information lives? If it's in documents, emails, systems, not just someone's memory, right? That actually is kind of one of the biggest blockers to implementing AI. Oftentimes, this is all just, shared knowledge and it hasn't been documented. Okay. If you have that, it's enough to make the workflow. Do you have enough context to brief a new person? So if you can explain the task to a human, you have enough information for AI. And then is someone responsible for keeping it current? So we all know that things change inside of our organization. So ensuring that the data that you are using in this AI workflow is up to date and still relevant for the use case. Okay. Now, is that a lot to think about when it comes to data? Absolutely. And so when we start talking about how AI is changing processes and changing our organizations, this is one of the examples because most managers and team members haven't had to think much about data before. But as data is so much a part of working with AI, it's essential to be thinking about, okay, what data do we have? Where is it? Where is it accessed? Is it relevant? And is it up to date? Right? Those are questions you have to be asking yourself as you implement these AI workflows. So here's your check-in, evaluating data. What data do you need to ensure your AI workflows are useful? Okay, what's the most important data in your team? And are there any types of data that your team shouldn't use? Right? If so, how will you communicate that? So really building those data privacy skills, and this time making it more relevant around specific tasks that they do daily. So have a reflection on that, and we'll move on to the next step in your AI workflows. All right, let's talk about choosing AI tools for your team. I got to tell you, this is the biggest question I got in 2025 from all of my clients is what AI tools and models should we use? This question reflects our reality now, and that is we are in a time of absolute tool overwhelm. AI tools are everywhere, as I mentioned before. We have the general ones that we know pretty well, general purpose tools that you can do a lot of things with, or multitask tools, ChatGPT, Copilot, and so on. But we are also swimming in specialized tools, and what specialized tools are the ability to use them for a specific task within your function, right? And oftentimes they can do multiple things, but they do them really well, better often than the general use tools like ChatGPT. So some examples. Jasper is a tool up on the left here that is used on content teams and marketing teams for branded content. So you provide all of your branded content in your voice. It trains a model to be able to use your voice when you prompt it. So when you prompt it, you're going to get an output that sounds like your company. You won't have to upload a bunch of things, give it a bunch of instructions in your prompt over and over, right? It just makes it faster for you to get a quality output. That is their value. Flare AI is a company for product marketers. So you can see them on product marketing teams where you upload a picture of your product and you describe the setting you want it in. And you can see here, these are all just AI generated images of real products. Then we have Synthesia. This is a company that does virtual avatars that talk and move for L&D and sales teams. So they're primary customers. And you can see like they're using the capabilities of generative AI, video, audio, right? And turning them into products that are super useful on these teams. Now, then the question, so you can see where we get this question. But honestly, the answer to start with is the one that your company provides. Because if your company has an AI tool that they provide, meaning they have an internal access to it, they likely have some data privacy sharing agreement with that company, with that AI company, meaning it offers better data security, right? Than maybe using it on your own. So that's the first answer. If your company does not provide an AI tool, and you are left to choose whatever tool, my answer to you is to choose the tool that gets the job done. Because the reality is, some tools are better than other. Even between the big models, sometimes power users like myself, we will split our time. We'll use ChatGPT for something and Claude for something else, or Gemini for another task. But that ability to figure that out begins with the ability to use one tool well. So my advice to you is to you and to those on your team is to get very good at one tool. And when you start to find the boundaries of what that tool can't do, then start looking at other tools to experiment with, right? Also, I'd learn how does your company approve new tools, right? Because it's not just about whether or not you can use it, but also do you have the budget? Can you get the budget for those tools as well? And I'll tell you, when you are making the business case for AI tools, being able to talk about your proposed AI workflow and the value savings in that helps persuade them to invest in more AI tools. So that's part of the other reason you are doing this. So the answer to the question is to start with the work and not the tool. You're going to identify the real business needs before evaluating tools. I want you to identify the problem to be solved, which you've already done in previous videos. Define the job you want done by the tool, right? So really saying like, this is the thing that I want the tool to do before you even go looking at tools. That is so important, is that clarity on, what it should be doing and what you want the tool to do. So an example of that, the problem, weekly operations updates take too long and vary in quality, job to be done. Turn raw notes and metrics into a clear first draft of the weekly update. Tool criteria, I need it summarized, structured inputs. I need producing consistent drafts and connecting to Slack, right? Maybe that Slack connection is like a bonus, but just having your ideals there so you can really measure against the tool. This is no different from identifying other tools, but this really helps cut down on the hype, right? Because it's really easy to be dazzled by what AI can do, but the reality is you want it to solve a problem. Now, the example I use here is very simple. You could probably do this with ChatGPT, but that is the exercise. So I want you to check in. What AI tools is your team already using, and what jobs do the AI tools do? Right? Are there some that you didn't know about? And who on your team can you delegate to keep up to date on new AI tools for your function and industry? So if you haven't already, Google your function and industry plus AI tools and find out what's being used out there. Is it better than ChatGPT? Is it better than Gemini? It's worth looking just to see. And you can always set up a demo with these companies. You don't have to buy, but you can set up a demo with these companies for you and your team to really learn what's possible with AI using these tools. Okay. Good luck finding out this information and exploring the world of tools, AI tools. Let's talk about AI agents. AI agents exploded onto the scene in 2025 and caused a lot of hype, and they are continuing to cause hype inside of organizations. And so it's really important that you understand the nuance around AI agents and how to think about them if you're in an organization where your leadership is asking for AI agents. Because the reality is that AI agents operate a little bit differently. And in order to use AI agents on your team, you need to have a strong foundation on how AI works, AI literacy skills, and the skill sets on your team to effectively use them. So let's talk about AI agents. First off, they're a little bit different from other tools. So you can think of them as AI that uses tools and takes multi-step actions towards a goal with less hand-holding than regular chat. So translation here, it's using a bunch of different tools. It can do many different things in one kind of prompt, and you don't have to pay attention to it as it works. So if you think about traditionally with AI tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, you go back and forth with it, right, to get the output you want. And oftentimes it's one single thing that you're looking for. With AI agents, they're going to do many things in one flow, and you only need one prompt to kind of set them on their way. So the thing to know about AI agents is they exist in a spectrum of AI tools. And you can see I've got a couple of boundaries around tools here, but it's still kind of fuzzy. You have your general purpose AI tools, those are like ChatGPT and Gemini. And the key thing to know about them is that you work with them. You go back and forth. You guide the AI through the process, right? Then you have custom tools. These are pre-built tools that you use for specific tasks. Okay. So these are kind of like your specialized tools or like custom GPTs where you build it for, a specific task on your team and it saves, a lot of time, makes people's lives easier. We haven't talked about a lot about custom tools in this course, but that is an option. Then we have our AI agents. So AI agents are kind of that next level. And these are AI tools that take action towards a goal. So essentially when you're prompting an AI agent, you're directing them to complete a task. Okay. You're not necessarily working with it. It makes decisions on its own, takes steps on its own, and oftentimes creates multiple outputs. So we'll see things like an AI agent can research information, organize information, analyze the information, create files about it, and so on. So I could give it the task of researching competitor insights and competitor websites, pulling together everything they find, summarizing it, analyzing it, making recommendations, and putting it into a slide deck for me. And the output will be those files of recommendations plus a completed slide deck, right? That's an example of an agent. You're not going to necessarily get that from ChatGPT. Now, then we have automation tools, and these exist separately from AI. And here's the tricky part about automation. They can be AI enabled, or they can simply run on their own. And these often just run behind the scenes without you thinking about them. Oftentimes you don't see automation, you experience it as a user. And these are often triggered by something that happens in a piece of software. So spectrum of AI tools. So what makes an AI agent an AI agent? Well, one, it uses tools. So it may call tools like search, it may create files, it may access APIs, etc. It can plan and execute multiple steps, so it's doing the planning and the execution, and it works more independently than general AI tools. So that independence is really key. But as I said, it's still messy because the reality is ChatGPT is a general purpose tool, but it uses web search and some plugins and can be an agent. It actually offers an agent option. Claude Code writes and runs code. It modifies files. It is an agent. And Perplexity searches and synthesizes information is also an agent, right? So it does get messy. But I do want to show you an example of what an agent might look like. This is Manus AI. This is Meta recently bought Manus. And you can see on Manus, I'm going to link to this in the resources, a bunch of use cases of how this agent is used. And there is a lot of differences, a lot of different use cases here. But what I like about this is that it gives you like almost like a review of one of their use cases. You can see what it does. So this is an example of a prompt. This is a sales and analysis and strategies run through on this agent for an Amazon store. And essentially what it's doing is, it's saying, can you just analyze all of my sales data here and make some visualizations and recommendations, right? And this is something we've seen done with like ChatGPT. But now what it does, it's going to take some time. It's going to think through. It's going to execute commands. So it's calling tools here. Okay, it's creating a file here and it's showing you exactly what it's doing. And then it summarizes what it's working on. It works on the visualization. So it's calling a data visualization tool and so on. So this goes on and on and on. I'm not going to go through it, but you can definitely explore it. And then it gives you the result. It gives you the key findings, but then it spits out some of these. You've got visualizations right here. And there's many of them. You've got files. So you have the sales analysis report here. You've got a list of all the files that it created and so on. So really it's doing multiple things from a single prompt. You can walk away and don't have to do anything here. So that is an example of an agent. And I think it's important to note when we talk about agents, we talk about automating things, right? Agents do a really good job of automating things, and often they do involve some amount of automation. But I need you to know is a difference between these terms. Automation follows fixed rules. They execute and repeat tasks explicitly as defined. AI adapts to the context and uncertainty by interpreting inputs and making decisions based on patterns. So AI is interpreting things. Automation is following rules set by a person who has, defined the rules. So they're different, but here's the trick. They can be combined. Now, what does this mean? It means that sometimes you will find tools that are being promoted as AI agents that are called AI automation. An example of that is make.com. I'll put a link to it in the resources. But these are referred to as no-code AI automation AI agents that you can build that combine the benefits of automation, so control, and AI, so that ability to analyze information, extract information, and so on. So you're combining these two very useful capabilities in order to automate some of your workflows. Now, that's just the high level of some of this. But I want to show you an example of Glean AI. Glean AI is an AI agent platform, and they have what's called an an agent library. And I'll link to this in the resources, of course. And what I love about this is that it's a great way to learn about what AI agents do. Because again, these companies, they have to educate people. So they oftentimes have a huge educational component on their websites that you can learn from. And I'm going to pick one of these AI agents, and you can see they're categorized by function here. And I'm just going to go to the deal loss insights. And when I click on them, I get an idea of what this AI agent does. Right. And I love this website. I'm not, affiliated with them. I just love how they break this down because they show you the agent in action. It talks about what the capabilities are. It gives you an example output, right? And it tells you exactly what the agent does. And you can see this is a workflow here, right? So the workflow is triggered when an opportunity is marked as closed, lost in your CRM. So a human didn't trigger this. A piece of software did. Then when that happens, the agent extracts the details from what happened in your CRM. It searches more information. So using search and AI to understand the information. It generates a reason for the loss. So it's using AI to generate, and then it logs the findings in a spreadsheet. That is an example of the power of an agent. All of that is done with one agent without human interaction. So pretty powerful stuff. And I love that they also break down, best for what kind of data it connects to. This really helps give you just kind of a picture of just the scale of AI agents and the difference between this and using ChatGPT for a task or any other AI tool. So when you are exploring AI agents, it's helpful to look at AI agent vendors, right? Ask yourself, what problem are they solving here? What problem was Glean solving, right? Well, on that agent, it was solving the problem of not knowing why your deals are being lost, right? That can be really helpful if you're a leader in the sales space. I want you to explore what data to connect to. So if you're going to use an AI agent on your team, you need to know what data these agents need to succeed. They are often data intensive AI products. And then you're going to look for agent library demos, or excuse me, collections, like I just showed you, and opportunities to demo with these teams. Again, you can learn a lot from their demo, whether you're going to buy them or not. They're educational opportunities. So, in summary, AI assistants versus AI agents, here's a way to think about it. AI agents, you guide it step by step. It's a back and forth conversation. You stay in charge. You're driving it, your hands on throughout. AI agents, it's a handoff. Right? I like to joke that I give my AI agent a task, I go have coffee, I do something else, and I come back and I get the results. Okay? You hand off and check back. The AI agent is going to break the work down into pieces that it understands and manage that work on its own. It's going to call tools, and you come back to a finished result. Now, these agents, oftentimes you'll hear things like, oh, we need autonomous agents that are going to do everything, and everyone's just going to oversee all of these agents. Well, some of that is kind of true, but the reality is far more messy. You still need humans. You need humans to set the agent goal. So you need to determine what is it that the agent is supposed to do, right? You need to review outputs. These agents are going to make mistakes. They're going to miss context and they're going to hallucinate. It is a lot of work to get an agent up and running, testing it to make sure it is ready for prime time. Okay. You have to course correct. You have to redirect it when it goes wrong. You have to figure out why it's going wrong and update the prompt, update the system, update the data in order to fix it. And then you need final approval, deciding, is this good enough to use? Okay, so you do need humans for agents, despite some of that narrative out there. And again, it's messy because we do have agents embedded into existing AI tools, general purpose AI tools like ChatGPT. ChatGPT has an agent right now that actually pulls up websites and reviews them in front of you and makes decisions about it. Okay. The other thing to know about AI agents is they do struggle with complex work. This is an example here that I'll link to in the resources, but this is from Cursor, their own documentation. And Cursor is probably one of the best AI agents out there. They are a platform for software engineers, incredibly popular. And they write that the reality of working with agents is that they are great at tasks with clear objectives and established patterns, right? So if you have work that's very linear and you know exactly what it does and it does this repeatedly, agents are really good at that, but they struggle with complex, and they talk about in the context of engineering here, software engineering, they struggle with complex debugging. Which requires deep understanding of system interactions, perfectly matching visual design mockups down to the pixel. So remember where AI still struggles? Details, right? And they're also struggling with, do we have enough context here to solve the problem, right? Because these agents rely on data, they rely on context of the job it's supposed to do. So it has problems with complex problem solving, details, and they're expensive. Let's be real, they are more expensive to run than some other AI tools, and they still require human oversight. And sometimes they just get stuck. Yeah, but so do humans. So things to know, there's a lot of hype. But the reality is a lot more complex. And the hype is that leaders are talking about AI agents without understanding what they actually are, what they're capable of doing, and when they're appropriate to use. So now that you are informed, you have the opportunity to engage in a dialogue about what AI agents are and what realistically can be done. Because the reality is not everything needs an agent. Most problems are solved faster and cheaper with simpler tools. Okay. Now, when you do implement an agent, they are absolutely useful. There are things you can do with agents that do speed up your work, but it is going to change your work, and your team needs to be prepared for that. So having that baseline understanding of what AI workflows are, training your team to understand where AI fits, what the processes look like, and where humans belong in the AI workflow is key for implementing AI agents. And so when you're considering AI agents, I want you to ask things like, can we solve this with simpler tools first? What problem are we solving? In an age of hype, where everyone wants to use AI agents, go back to the problem. What problem are we solving with AI agents? Otherwise, we're just spending a lot of money to use AI agents. Have we tested this with AI to see if we can do AI chat, a general tool, to see if that's enough? And then what are the workflow steps? that this agent is replacing. So clear idea there. Integration. Do we need IT support or to connect this to our system? Who owns it when it breaks? Does anyone on the team know how to troubleshoot this? Where is human oversight and why? Okay. And have we documented the steps? There's a typo on my screen there. So those are questions you can ask. Data and privacy. Do you have enough data? That's so similar to what we talked about before. And does our AI use policy allow this use case? So in this case, I'm not going to give you reflection questions. I'm just going to give you advice because honestly, AI agents is its own course. This is just a slight overview to prepare you. If you are integrating AI agents, I want to get you to get your team comfortable with general AI use for daily tasks. That base minimum, they need to be comfortable with AI. Okay. Two, I want you to identify and document those repetitive processes. We worked on this in previous videos, working on that. What are the workflows that can be used for AI? So you have a clear path for integrating those AI agents. You're not guessing, okay? That is just going to make it easier instead of trial and error because already integrating agents is trial and error. So then month 3 to 5, and this depends on just kind of your team, the expectations on how long this takes. Partner with engineering or AI teams to integrate those agents. If you are on a big enough team, maybe you're partnering directly with a vendor and they have support teams that can help you integrate as well. Regardless, you're going to be in a period of test and adapt, test and adapt. So that experimental mindset on your team, that ability to fail fast and fail forward to get to the end result and to know when to stop trying something when it's not worth it. Those are all going to be valuable skills when you're working with AI agents. And a reminder here that not everything should be automated and humans need to be kept in the loop for strategy, judgment, decision making, and high risk situations. So all those conversations about AI that you're bringing into your team are necessary to really facilitate these conversations around AI agents. So there you are. Now you are prepared for those discussions about AI agents, which certainly are going to be happening in an organization, in any organization going forward, now that AI agents have been introduced to the masses. So good luck, and I wish you very fruitful conversations. Okay. Now let's talk about documenting your AI workflows. This is the part where we move towards standardization, right? You have your AI workflows, you've been testing it out, it's working out. I want you to document it so everybody else on the team understands what they're doing with AI in this use case and AI workflow. So that means I want you to capture that workflow step by step, right? We talked about that in the AI workflow videos. Note where the AI assists and where the human leads, and then include the prompts, any of the tools that you're using, and the quality checkpoints. Where are we looking for quality and what does quality look like? And I want you to show examples of strong AI outputs. Now, this is a living resource. This should be accessible to your team. This could be in a Google Doc. It could be in your team, wiki page. It should live somewhere though in your team so people can access it. It should be visible and editable because things change. You should invite others to, if they're using the AI workflow and it's not working for them, invite them to refine it, right? Getting people involved is key. AI is not a technology where you can just set it and forget it. You have to check in on it and you have to update it. Okay. And again, we go back to how does AI change our organizations? It's like this, right? Once you've implemented AI, it is now a part of your team. It requires maintenance. It requires oversight. Okay. So making sure that you have the information in place and the processes in place and really people in place that can take that on is key. And updating regularly as tools and tasks evolve. So it is a process. And hopefully you've got someone on your team who's really into operations and process because this is definitely their kind of work. So documenting AI workflows. I want you to think about where will your AI documentation live and how will people access it? And then who can you delegate the task of keeping it up to date to? Who's a good person on your team that might do that well? Let's talk about AI metrics. How do we measure success from all of this work in identifying AI use cases and implementing AI workflows? This is really the final piece of the puzzle here, and I'd argue it's some of the most important pieces that are overlooked. So AI metrics, these are specific measurements that you track to determine whether AI workflows are delivering value for your team. Going back to that value proposition of AI, right? So I want you to think about how you are going to measure success in your AI workflows. One of the ways that we do that is to track time saved on a specific task, right? So we're taking note of how long this time spent on this workflow before AI, and then measuring it against how much time you're spending after AI. That number is going to be a success metric. And honestly, it is the most popular success metric. It's the easiest one to be able to talk about in terms of what was the impact of AI on your team. We saved, 3 hours time each week on this task. Our managers are 55% more effective now in onboarding, right? Time savings is the top metric. There are other ones, of course. You can track quality of output, so measured by revision rates or management approval. So looking at, have you improved the quality, the consistency of the work on your team? You could measure team adoption rates. So note on that, that's usually the first one that teams turn towards, but it doesn't really measure the success in terms of business outcomes. So yes, if all your team starts using AI, great, but we aren't seeing the impact of AI on your team. So it is a measure of success. Feel free to use it, but I would push further. I would also look at metrics that align with your business goals. So this is going to be specific for your team, right? But what in this list is relevant to your team that you can measure AI against in that AI workflow? Okay. You have volume increase, speed to completion, error reduction, employee satisfaction, right? I like employee satisfaction. Is using AI making it easier to do their work, right? Is there a better sentiment around workload thanks to AI? You can measure cost per output. Have you reduced costs due to AI, and so on? So these are some of the metrics that you can use in your narrative about AI in your narrative to leadership about your AI use on your teams. Okay. This is the package we're creating. We're creating this ability to talk about how you used AI and what the impact was, because that is what leadership wants to see. They want to see results. So you can also ask AI. Now, I don't always say ask AI, but in this case, it's actually really helpful because it's specific to your team and it's going to give you some personalized insights into how you might measure the success of AI on your team. It's a great use case for AI, turning to it and saying, hey, what are some metrics that could help me in this situation? So I want you to remember this. You are benchmarking, you are tracking, and you are reporting, and you're repeating this throughout the AI workflow process. And what I mean by benchmark, I want you to pay attention to what the workflow was like before. What did it look like? How long did it take? How much money did it cost, if that's relevant? Okay, benchmark that. Then implement AI, track the results, and report them. That is what you are doing here to kind of tie off this project and finish it up. And so you can deliver it to leadership and say, hey, yes, we are adopting AI on our team. This is the result. And we're going to continue doing this forward. Because right now, all you need is one. You need one package to be able to give leadership and say, yes, we have been successful with AI. And then you can go back and repeat on your teams. So our check-in for this unit, measuring AI success. What does success with AI look like on your team? Okay. What does that look like, and which metrics align with your AI use? I shared several in this unit right here. So go back to that list and see, are there any that align with your AI use cases? We are about ready to wrap this course, and I want to congratulate you on everything you've learned by this point because we have covered a lot. So I'm going to leave you with some ideas about how you can delegate some of these AI activities that we've talked about in this course and just make your life a little bit easier as you go through this AI learning journey. On top of that, when you delegate some of these AI activities, you are giving people on your team a chance to learn about AI as well. Because as you know, skill development and learning is different in every individual. So by delegating some of these AI activities, you're going to give people on your team the chance to learn. So a reminder that you can't do it all, okay? As we talked about at the beginning of this course, you are having to learn and manage AI use on your team on top of your existing job. And that is a tall order. So you can't do it all, so don't try to. So I'm going to go back to the core management responsibilities with AI that I shared at the top of this course. And as a quick review, they are facilitating the development of AI fluency skills, communicating guidelines and guardrails around AI use, coaching teams through AI use, identifying AI use cases and workflows, and managing AI risk and responsibility. You have learned how to do all of that in this course. So I'm going to break down how you can bring other people in to help you with those tasks and delegate some of these activities. One, let's talk about facilitating the development of AI skills. Some ideas to help you on this. One, you can empower AI champions to teach prompting and iteration. The people on your team that are big prompters, let them teach it to their peers. You can assign responsibility of the prompt library to AI enthusiasts. So collecting all those prompts, this could be a one-person job, a two-person job, three-person job, could be collective, right? But when we collect those prompts and outputs, we're able to have a discussion about the capabilities of AI on our teams. You can also have a team member collect and share AI training materials and resources in team spaces. So oftentimes we find that once we get past this baseline understanding of AI, learning needs to be real relevant to the team's role and everyday tasks. So you may find stuff that's very relevant to your function and industry out there, and you may want to share that with your team. Assigning that to someone is a great task. When it comes to communicating guardrails and guidelines around AI use, you can assign a team member to regularly review the team's data usage and policy. So again, checking back in, what kind of data are we using? How are we using this data? What does the current policy say? This is probably a quarterly activity, I would say. You can also assign a team member to be the liaison with the responsible AI teams, a review and report on the policy quarterly. This could be the same person. It could be a separate person. If you've got someone on your team that's passionate about responsible AI, ethical AI, this is a great role for them to be in. Coaching on AI use, you can assign rotating facilitators to run short AI review discussions focused on what works, what failed, and why. I love this one because it really gets people involved, no matter where they're at in the learning process. And then have someone track recurring issues like hallucinations. So the go-to person when something's not going right with AI, have them help them troubleshoot, and have them point out things like hallucinations. Remember I talked about that client I had that had a wall of hallucinations, right? They could be responsible for that. When it comes to identifying AI use cases and workflows, these are things that I see work across many organizations. One, you can delegate the capture of the before and after workflows to show how AI changes work. So we're not just focused on the outcome, the speed, but what does it look like before and what does it look like after, right? So we go back to that documentation. This is someone on your team that can do that. You can assign an experienced team member to coach others on narrow use cases rather than just learning AI. So how do we apply AI specifically to our role? If you have someone on your team, AI champion, or just someone who's really gotten AI quickly, they can help with this. And then you can also tap your AI champions to create AI use case templates for team members. I provided one earlier in the course. You can have them responsible for collecting them. They can modify the template so it fits your department or team or so on. But you can definitely delegate that. So here's what you're not delegating. Very high list. One, the prioritizing and sequencing of AI work. People are going to find a lot of uses for AI. You're the one that needs to figure out what's important and when we should focus on it. The approval of AI use cases in workflows. In an ideal world, we're all finding the use cases and documenting them. That doesn't mean they're all useful, and it doesn't mean they are all worthy of being shared across other departments. So you are the one that approves those and makes them formally part of the workflows. Guardrails and human review requirements. Yes, they can tell you where direct reports can tell you where they think it should happen. You're the one that signs off on it, right? You're the one overseeing risk and quality trade-offs. You're defining what the good work is, what good work looks like, and setting that standard, right? Same thing you do in your job when it doesn't involve AI. And then once again, you are the final accountability for outcomes. So because you've put things in place like human review, you've standardized what good outputs look like. That means you are in a position to take that final accountability for outcomes. So you're not delegating that either. So there you have it. That AI is going to create chaos on your teams. It probably already is. Maybe that's why you're here. But a reminder that you're all in this together. You're learning it together. So learning is messy. It's chaotic. And in the end, good enough is okay. You don't have to be an expert at AI. Your team does not have to be an expert at AI, right? The fact is, the fact of the matter is you are working with it. You're figuring out what works and you're standardizing those processes. And you know what? That's okay. That's pretty good right there. So I hope this class has helped you learn how to manage your team's AI use better and giving you some structure moving forward as you move from that experimental phase into integration of AI on your teams. It has been a pleasure to chat with you through all of this. And if you're curious about staying in touch, feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. Good luck.